Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome all. Welcome all who got the notifications. Um, Remember to like this, share this, tweet this out, and make sure that you encourage people to subscribe to the channel. Tonight, we have a very interesting conversation that needs to take place. It will make some people a little uneasy, but it's very needed that we have this conversation. Good evening, Dr. Short.
You need to correct the echo on this broadcast.
Hold on. How's it now? How's it now, Dr. Short?
I think you're fine.
All right. So, good evening, Dr. Short. How's it going?
Still there. It's still there. It's still there.
It's not coming from my end then. Dr. Short will be back, you guys, in 1 second. Everybody make sure you guys like this, share this out, and do all that good stuff. Yeah, Dr. Short, I got you.
Okay.
How's everything going?
It's all right. It's okay. You?
Today was a very interesting day. It rained a lot. Cooled down a little bit from that heat that we had got last week. But other than that, I've been in the house all day just doing some research. Tonight's show, Dr. Short, we're talking about the silent genocide everyone knows about. And I told everybody in the chat when we was having technical difficulties that this is probably a conversation that will make some people uneasy, but it's a reality definitely in our community to talk about it. So, yeah. Dr. Short, since Roe versus Wade, 1972, right? We have had an estimated 20 to 30 million abortions, and that's not total abortions. That's just within the Black community. And for those that don't know, you want to give us a brief history on who started Planned Parenthood?
Well, actually, I would rather us talk about population control in general before Planned Parenthood, because it didn't start there.
Okay.
So why not you, if you can? Let's give an overview, see if you do that, and then we work through it.
Okay. Well, one of the people who inspired Margaret Sanger is this gentleman that's on the flyer. Most people think that Margaret Sanger was the creator or the first person who started eugenics. In all actuality, this gentleman here was. I'm not going to say his name. I'll just put it up on the screen. And then everybody in the chat can go do their research. And the reason why I'm not going to say his name, because we know that this is not a platform that we own. However, if anybody wants to do their own research on this man and what he was about and what he thought about population control and the genocide of everyone that was not of a superior race. And this stuff goes back, Dr. Short is the historian, this stuff goes back a long time, and it's continuing, and it's just actually just being rebranded to the very same thing that we'll discuss, some of the things that we eat, so forth and so on. So go ahead, Dr. Short.
Well, how can we say this? Let's just start here by saying that there's a war against humanity, and then there's a war against the Black portion of humanity. And this is ongoing, and it's not new. We have always, and there has always been strategies for controlling population, for the empires or tribalism or whatever. There have been efforts for groups competing for resources to subjugate, eliminate, destroy, rape, genocide various groups of people. So it's not new. The only thing new is the optimism of our people to pretend that it's not happening because we don't want to deal with it. But this whole effort to eradicate or replace people is an ongoing process all over the world in many different places. Now, I want to help people by saying that practically all of us, whether we like it or not, are oriented to support genocide and racism. Everyone. It's almost mandatory. Why would I say that? Because prior to the 1850s, let's just make it like 1855, thereabout, whenever this book came out by Charles Darwin. Let me see. It was in the 1850s. Let me get the exact date, because that's what people in history do. So I think it's the 1850s, but if it's a little earlier, let me make certain.
If I'm correct, him and Charles Darwin was cousins, right?
They are cousins. Let me get this exact date so we can all be on one page, because I don't want anyone to think I wouldn't tell you what was absolutely factually so. And, we're talking about this person who gets so much love and respect, and he doesn't deserve it. And I'm going to just get the exact date so I can have this. I'm so, let me put this down so we can get the actual date. And forgive me for not, I'm sort of sleepy, so. But let's see. Which year was this book published? Let's get it. Okay, it was published. That's right. It was in the 1850s, but it's November 14th, 1859. And this book that was published by Charles Darwin, November 24th, 1859. The actual title, and by the way, this is the Foundation of Evolutionary Biology. The real name of the book, because you always hear just on the origins of species, and the real title of the book is On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or The Preservation of Races and the Struggle for Life. And the basis of Charles Darwin's theory about human beings is that we're not really human. We're just another kind of animal. We're like insects. We're like bugs. We're like plants. We're not different. We're just another kind of animal. So you introduce the whole idea that populations evolve over time of generations through the process of natural selection. And some of the processes of natural selection are war, famine, disease, conquest. And his cousin, there are a couple of things that come from Darwin. It's very interesting. Think about it. What else is happening in 1859? I'm thinking of a very interesting event that occurred in 1859. Let me get the date for it, because this book comes out in November 1859. And let me see. There's something else major that happened in 1859. And I'm trying to think. I want to get the proper date, because I always want to have that done, because it's going to be close. Oh, yes. Hallelujah, Jesus. What happened just before the release of this book? That is a veiled book that's speaking about the racial supremacy of white people, and how, as the elite animals, they, by what's called biological determinism, it's a theory derived from Darwin, that certain people are going to take over and get rid of others because they're biologically better. Biology makes people have to get rid of folks who aren't as good. And what happens just a little before he releases his book, speaking of determinism and race and all this other stuff, what else is going on? Just a couple of days before, he released his book over in England. Between October 16th, 1859, and October 18th, 1859, John Brown did his raid on Harper's Ferry as an effort, and John Brown was a white abolitionist who wanted to initiate a black slave revolt in the southern states by taking over the United States arsenal at Harper's Ferry. And he wanted to put weapons in the hands of blacks to forcibly and forcibly take their freedom from their white slave masters. And what we need to call at the end of the day, damn this thing. I'm gonna have to put the thing on. Hold on just one moment. Just one moment. Yes, are you with me, Brother Quentin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You know, it's amazing when people choose to contact you. I've been trying to reach someone for a week, and no matter when I've called, I have to admit it, you start doing something and everybody turns up. That's why you don't take their call. Get back to me sooner. That's what it's 10. I mean, you had the whole day. And wait until now. Nah, I'll get back to you later. You'll be okay. I texted you and everything else. Now, what I was saying, Harper's Ferry raid by John Brown is just literally just about a month and a week, a little under a week before the publication of this book. We'll use the short, less racist origin of species. And so, and it's just, I'm going to put that in that thing because what follows within, say, 2 years of John Brown's raid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the American Civil War. America was the largest slaveholding society in the world, or at least the most wealthy slaveholding society. Maybe Brazil had a few more, but still, the United States by far. So what's going on is in 1859, Great Britain is preparing to go into and take over Africa and other places, and they don't need people to be anything but basically disposable workers for the expansion of the British Empire. The British had basically supposedly gotten rid of slavery in the 1830s, whereas the United States, the sister nation to Great Britain, still had slavery. 4 or 5 million slaves in the United States. Sit down and think about that. England ended it. In fact, let's go back a little bit and let's do something. Because we're going to keep showing that there's a parallel between what happens in Great Britain or England or the UK or whatever you want to call it, and America. First and foremost, let's jump back from the 1850s and do that wonderful year. In fact, it was in October. I think it's October. Let me look at that real fast so I have this correct, because we want to have our dates right. It's important to have dates so you can draw parallels. Don't you like the way I got this Harper's Ferry thing hooked up to the origins of species? That you never heard it that way, because a lot of folks separate everything out. No, it's all interconnected.
And we just had that conversation a couple of weeks ago about Harper's Ferry too.
Okay, let's do that. And if I'm correct, I want to make certain. All right. So we have everything straight now. So let me see. So let me see. Now we know October 2nd was Nat Turner's birthday. Go Nat, go Nat, go Nat. And by the way, Nat Turner was captured October 30th, 1831. The struggle that they had for freedom was August 21st to 23rd, 1831. And let me do something else. Let me see if I can get, I'm going to do this one more time and then we'll go right into it. I want to show y'all something. I'm going to show you something. All right. What you need to know, and one of the most, if not the most important British possession in the Americas was Jamaica. And Christmas, and think about it, they catch Nat Turner on October 31st. October 30th, 1831. And on December 27th, 1831, in Jamaica, a Jamaican Baptist minister by the name of Sam Sharp started what's called the Baptist War. That became a slave revolt that lasted for 10 days. And with 60,000 of Jamaica's people who were black rose up, and they For 2 weeks they fought. 14 whites were killed, but 200 people were shot dead. Mr. Sharp, again, a Baptist preacher, was hung in 1832. As many as 340 additional people were executed for rebelling against the British, but so significant was the fighting that burnt many plantations down that the whole British economic system that was based around sugar and the exploitation of Black people had to change. That so significantly that in 1833, the British Parliament issued the Slavery Abolition Act, and they finally ended slavery across the British Empire in 1838. Now, again, they hung Sam Sharp in 1832, so towards the beginning of that year. And it's interesting, Nat Turner was hung on November 11th, 1831. Nat Turner's revolt rocked the United States so severely until it set the stage for the American Civil War, which would come exactly just about almost just shy of 30 years to the day of Nat Turner's revolt. I believe the Civil War started in April 1861. Let me get that date for you. The firing on Fort Sumter. Let me get that for you. I'm trying to do something here. I know I'm going about in the long way. I'm going to get into trouble because folks want everything fast. But we're not going to do everything fast. I'm pretty certain that it's April. Yes. And I need to remember that. April 12th, 1861. The South Carolina military began to fire on the United States garrison at Fort Sumter. I should remember April 12th because it is the day that Franklin Delano Roosevelt died. And but that's another issue. So think about it. Nat Turner's people rose up in August. So just shy of 30 years after Nat Turner, white folks concerned about the preservation of slavery started the Civil War in America. The British, who had a very different system of slavery, and let's talk about it, Mr. Charles Darwin and his cousins' people were what you would call absentee landlords. The wealthy people who in Britain got rich off of slavery had plantations that were massive, run by their mulatto children and sometimes white overseers who held down the Black majority. And they were in London living the good life as other people were the ones in charge of running, like mid-level or they outsourced the managing of their plantations to people who were on the sugar islands, places like Barbados, Trinidad, coastal Guyana, which isn't an island, Barbuda, Nevis, all this sugar was the big thing that was making money. Jamaica was their pearl. And later, of course, Haiti, of course, was a pearl, but it had gotten its freedom by 1804. And that's a whole nother discussion in and of itself. But I just want this clear that Charles Darwin, who was from one of those rich absentee families, when these people no longer can hold black people as slaves, they had to change their game. It started in the 1830s. Let's look at this real fast. There was a ship that Charles Darwin toured the world on. It was a British Royal Navy ship, and this ship that was launched let me do it this way. This ship, the Beagle, carried Charles Darwin all over, but let me get you the dates because I want to do this one more time. And I'm trying to bring all this together. And yes, I'm not doing a lot of cussing. I'm doing this like a white professor. This is why y'all don't like school, because it's boring if you really get into the details. But I want to get this ship because I'm going somewhere with it. Work with me just a little bit longer. Okay. Let's do this. Charles Darwin was born in Shrewsbury, 12th of February, 1809. The family was very wealthy. His father was a financier, Robert Darwin. His grandfathers were prominent abolitionists. What I want you to understand, that these families, even if they became abolitionists, you can afford to do that once you get rich. He's a financier. What was the big thing that people invested in? Slave ships, slave insurance, plantation insurance. Even if they did not own, it's like the Northerners who invested in slavery, even if they didn't have slaves themselves. Are you understanding me? Now, I want to get somewhere. Let me get this. Okay. We already discussed that what happened in 1831 was you had Sam Sharpe's rebellion against the British. In 1831. What also was happening in 1831? And that's why I turned to this. It's interesting. The same day that Sam Sharpe's rebellion against the British over slavery in Jamaica is the same day that Charles Darwin started on his sailing around the world to understand evolution, or what came to be called Darwinian evolution. Are you getting me, brother? Mm-hmm. December 27th in Jamaica, black folks rise up and fight for their freedom. And this man, who's the son of privilege of families that got rich off of the slave trade, although they're against it, he's sailing on a boat. And guess what? The trip on this Beagle is a total of 5 years. It literally ends the same year. And let me just do this. What the British did was they wanted slavery to end in the British Empire. They declared slavery illegal in 1838 or thereabout. But the people would have to go through what's called an apprenticeship period that was supposed to be from 1833 to 1836. Although there are other places in the empire that slavery ended in 1838. But it's interesting that the Beagle, the same time that black people are fighting for their freedom and have made that progress, a man who's become wealthy through the families benefiting from the enslavement and subjugation and genocide of Black people, he has the leisure to be on a boat for 5 years to look at snails and shells and fish. Ain't that a life? And it's the same period of time that they're dithering around about freeing these people. And by the way, they didn't give them reparations, but the landlords and the slave masters in England all were compensated for letting their Blacks go. Just want to let you know, reparations was too paid. Now, let me help you out some more. What's happening in the United States between 1831 and 1836 is the cotton boom really takes off. Let's look. Let me just show you. And so I'm going to do these two countries. I'm going back and forth. But isn't that something? The same period of time that they're trying to figure out what to do with niggers, that Darwin is traveling the world to try to prove white superiority. Looking around, he's into nature. Now let's look at the cotton gin, right? We're going to do this real fast because in the 1830s, let's look at it. Let me do this real fast. What happens in the United States between the 1830s? They say it was invented by Eli Whitney in 1793 and patented in 1794. I don't believe it. It was developed down in Wilkes County, South Carolina. No, I'm sorry, Wilkes County, Georgia. How can a white dude who has barely nothing to do with cotton all of a sudden comes down and watches Black people work and comes up with an invention? I think he took it. I think he stole it from somebody. Now I want to do something with this. With the cotton gin, America began to become an agricultural power with the cotton, right? And that was something that made people fabulously wealthy. But it's connected to Black enslavement. Oh, okay, are you understanding me?
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to do something. Cotton literally becomes a very, very, very important thing, because what was happening in America is that tobacco and other things had destroyed the soil here. All right. Are you understanding me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That people had to find something else to blow up with. And I want to say to you that cotton, by the time of the Civil War, cotton was responsible for the American economy growing. You already know that. But it really began to blow up. It was doing well in the 1820s, but slowly. But there's a real boom following the War of 1812, where you began to do genocide. You drive the Indians out of Georgia. You drive them out of Tennessee. You drive them out of North Carolina. You drive them out of Alabama. You drive them out of Mississippi, right? You begin forcing them to go to reservations, driving them towards Oklahoma, right? The Choctaws, the Cherokees. And with that, there's the explosion in cotton cultivation and in the reinvigorated system of Black slavery. People thought it was going to die off. Even when people drawing the Constitution, they thought slavery wouldn't last because it was profitable, but in George Washington's and Thomas Jefferson's lifetime, slavery was not as profitable as it was shortly after they had died. This country really becomes wealthy after the War of 1812. And what happens after the 1830s? What happens in 1836? I'm going somewhere with this. You get the Lone Star Republic of Texas, where white people from America invade Mexican territory to grow cotton and to do other things. The Mexicans had outlawed slavery and the white folks disregarded them. And when the Mexicans tried to stop them, they had an illegal war and they took Texas away from Mexico. And that's in the late 30s. And of course, eventually, the United States government annexes Texas, the Lone Star state, and makes it part of America. And what? In order to grow more cotton and for there to be more slavery and so forth, right? And then what do you have? You find gold in California, what? In the 1840s, and you have the gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
So, right? And many people don't remember, but California was a major slave state. A major slave state. It was a slave state. California had slavery for Indians, for blacks, for Asians. They probably had the most diversified slave system in the country, in case people didn't know that. I'm going somewhere with this. So America goes to war with Mexico, and before it goes to war with Mexico, America is, from the 1790s, is going broke doing what? It's investing all of its money and helping the French do genocide on blacks in Haiti, in which the French and Americans killed up to 250,000 people trying to beat down the Haitian Revolution. France went broke, and that's how the United States got the Louisiana Purchase. So there was all this land opened up, and of course the jewel of the Louisiana Purchase was Louisiana and New Orleans, which was a major what? Slave port. Are you working with me? Slavery, 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 race, race, race. And all these things are moving. And Charles Darwin was born in 1809. So this man is born where slavery is growing. It's not contracting. Maybe in England, but he's old enough in 1831 and 36 to see slavery is expanding. And who is the main beneficiary of all this cotton being grown? England. England got and purchased most of America's cotton. Raw cotton shipped out of New Orleans, shipped out of Savannah, shipped out of Richmond, shipped out of Mobile, goes to England. Now, something else happens in the 1830s. In fact, what happens is that the same movement that had gone on in England for the abolition of slavery, which England promptly and supposedly did in 1836, and really 1831, it really took off after these Negroes burnt up all their investments. And they didn't have the capacity. In fact, the British would have never succeeded in continuing slavery for another 5 years were it not for the high yellow Jamaicans and the Jamaican Maroons. The Jamaican Maroons do not compare in any way to the Black American Maroons that I'm descended from. The Black American Maroons only helped people escape slavery. They only fought against slavery. They never worked with white people. The Jamaican Maroons helped kill Black Jamaicans that wanted freedom. Their deal is they could be free if they didn't help anybody else. Sounds like our Black elite class. In fact,
Coon isn't
And
passed down.
in fact, the people from Kamala Harris's origin were part of the people that were killing Sam Sharp's people. And the people that Kamala Harris came from were the people who were not exactly white, who helped create a new system of so-called freedom that was really slavery, that was meant to starve and destroy Black Jamaicans as punishment for demanding their freedom, that they would be starved out of existence through deliberate neglect. Sounds like what happened to our people after the Civil War. The only difference is the color of the people that did it. Now, what's happening in Jamaica, of course, and the British Empire, they did not want Black people to be free. And you need to understand something. Let's go back some more, because I'm going to give some more social history before we get into this population control. But I hope this is making sense. So you follow me, Brother Q?
Yes.
In England and in the United States, they both had the same issue. The British got tired a little later than the Americans did, but it's about the same time. Now, let me just say to you, there's a phenomenal essay written by Benjamin Franklin, and let me see if I can find it. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'm going to read it. I love this. How many people we got on this call?
There's 77 people in the chat.
Okay, give your thumbs up, y'all. Thumbs up if you like this. Share this with someone. It's going to catch up. I'm just trying to give some background, because a lot of times we don't know these things. I'm going to get this essay for you. I want you to hear, because a lot of people, here we go. This is an essay by Thomas Jefferson. Let me see. No, that's not the one I want. I want to go back. No. There is an essay that Benjamin Franklin had, and I want to pull this thing up. In 1751, Benjamin Franklin wrote an essay and his essay was concerned about making certain that there weren't enough white people. You've heard that before. Mm-hmm. And he's saying this in 1751. I'm looking for this speech. Here it is. Okay, I wonder. Here it is. Let me see if I can get the quote. It's in this thing. Okay. Let me see if I have it. If I can get the whole thing. And I'm going to send this to you. Give me one more second. Let's see if I can get this. Is this going to let me have it? It's amazing what they've done to this internet. Let me see if I can have it. Okay, I got it. And I'm trying to think how I can get this to you. Okay, but here it is. It's from a thing called America as a Land of Opportunity. And I'm going to read some of this because there's been a concern and a disdain for us. Okay. Let's see. They don't like you when you're not cussing. Oh, my God. All right. Listen to this. Perhaps the most important essay written by an American during the 18th century, Franklin's observation concerning the increase of mankind was one of the first serious studies of demography. Demo means people, graphy, the study of people. In the early 19th century, it would serve as the inspiration for who? Thomas Malthus. His date 1766 to 1834. Malthus, you get the word Malthusian. Malthus was the one who had the idea that there were too many people. There were too many waste people, and a lot of them needed to die. Otherwise, too many people would make folks miserable. Now, understand, if he's white and he's in an era where black people are slaves, and guess who too many were eating were? Us. So Malthus proposed that there had to be ways to kill off the useless, no good, no non-value people, aka in particular blacks. And who inspired him? Benjamin Franklin. Let me read this again. Franklin's essay would be an inspiration for Malthus, who based his grim law of population. That means the population would always outstrip the food supply on Franklin's calculations. Now, what he said here, Europe is generally full and settled with husbandmen, manufacturers, etc., and therefore cannot now much increase in people. America is chiefly occupied by Indians who subsist mostly by hunting. But as the hunter of all men requires the greatest quantity of land from hence to draw his subsistence, the husbandman subsisting on much less, the gardener on still less, the manufacturer requiring the least of all, the Europeans found America as fully settled as it well could be by hunters, yet these having large tracts were easily prevailed on to part with portions of territory to the newcomers, bullshit, that means you killed them, who did not much interfere with the natives in hunting and furnished them with many things they wanted. That's not true either. They ripped them off. The land being thus plenty in America and so cheap as that a laboring man that understood husbandry can in short time save money enough to purchase a piece of new land sufficient for a plantation whereon he may subsist a family. Such are not afraid to marry, for even if it took far enough forward to consider how children, when grown, are up to be provided for, they would see more land and would have rates equally easy in all circumstances considered. Now, let me get away from that. I want to get down to what he's saying. Here we go. Notwithstanding this increase, so vast is the territory of North America that it will require many ages to settle it fully. Until it is fully settled, labor will never be cheap here, where no man continues long a laborer for others, but gets a plantation of his own. No man continues long a journeyman to a trade, but goes among those new settlers to set up for himself, etc. Hence, labor is no cheaper now in Pennsylvania than it was 30 years ago, though so many thousands of laboring people have been imported. What is he saying? We can't have good capitalism in America if we just have white people, because white folks want to make their own money. What does he say? Therefore, the danger, of these colonies interfering with their mother country and trades that depend on labor, manufacture, etc., is too remote to require the attention of Great Britain. But in proportion to the increase of the colonies, a vast demand is growing for British manufacturers, a glorious market wholly in the power of Britain, in which foreigners cannot interfere, which will increase in the short time even beyond her power of supplying, though her whole trade should be to her colonies. Therefore, Britain should not too much restrain manufactures in her colonies. A wise and good mother will not do it. To distress is to weaken, and weaken the children weakens the whole family. 'Tis an ill-grounded opinion that the labor of slaves America may possibly vie in cheapness of manufactures with Britain. The labor of slaves can never be so cheap here as the labor of the working men in Britain. Anyone may compute it. Interest of money in the colonies is from 6 to 10%. Slaves one another cost 30 pounds sterling per head. Reckon then the interest on the first purchase of a slave, the insurance or risk of his life, his clothing and diet, expenses in his sickness and lost time, and by his neglect of business. Neglect is natural to the man who is not benefited by his own care or diligence, an expense of a driver to keep him at work, and his pilfering from time to time. Almost every slave being by nature a thief. Let me read that again. Almost every slave being by nature a thief. When they treat you like a thief, black man and woman, it's because you are a slave in their mind. And compare the whole amount with the wages of the manufacture of iron or wool in England, you will see that labor is much cheaper there than it can ever be by Negroes here. Why then will Americans purchase slaves? Because slaves may be kept as long as a man pleases or has the occasion for their labor, while hired men are continually leaving their masters, often in the midst of business, and setting up for themselves. Let me skip some of this. Which leads me to add to one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionately very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia is chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. In other words, America's black and tawny. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only excepted, who with the English make up the principal body of the white people on the face of the earth. I wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods and and so making the side of our globe reflect a brighter light in the eyes of the inhabitants of in Mars or Venus, why should we, and the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity, by excluding all blacks and tawnies, of increasing the lovely white and red? I repeat, why increase the sons of Africa? Why should there be a major black birth rate in America when we white people could be there? Why in 2020 were they screaming about black people needing abortions, but not jobs, not food, not housing, not health care, not reparations, but we need to reduce the numbers of black people? They're saying this in 1751, my people. When was America made a country starting out? Was 1776. There wasn't even a goddamn United States of America. And they're already saying there are too many niggas there.
Codified behavior.
Before, and they're thieves. We have too many black thieves already. I mean, sit down and understand. And the man that says, look, the more the population grows, the more there'll be suffering, the more there won't be enough food to eat. We've got to cut down on the human population. Before the goddamn Georgia Guidestones people, they've been saying there were too many people when there weren't more than 1 billion people on the planet. When there were just over 1 billion or thereabout, they were bitching then. The same people now call it climate change. It's the same crowd that wants to kill us off. And it's not new. Even when we're chained up, not riding in the front of the bus, they've still got a problem. They got a problem with you being in Africa. They got a problem with, they don't. There's been a notion all along that we shouldn't exist or we shouldn't be too many. And they feel outnumbered. Now they're out invading and conquering people and they feel outnumbered. You know, you're going to go out and take somebody else's stuff and you're worried about them. That's because you don't want anyone to break your damn face. So I'm saying to you, the most brilliant man that they'll tell you in early America was Benjamin Franklin. And he even used, there was a group in England called the Sons of Africa. This was a group of white men that were against slavery, and they also didn't want black people in England. Let's keep their asses in Africa. Aren't we nice? Now, so I want to say to you, before there was an American Republic, that back then, that means that Benjamin Franklin was an Englishman who lived in the American colonies. Mm-hmm. They didn't want black people to flourish. Black people would be competition for white people. White people needed a chance to grow, and the problem that they would have is black people who they were stealing labor from. We're going to have to police them. They're going to steal. Of course, they're going to want freedom. We're not going to give it to them. Why bring them here? Why won't we white people work harder so we won't need niggers? That's 1751. So that is what? 15 years before the Declaration of Independence is signed, that he's saying, we don't need any more black people. You've been told that Frederick Douglass is an abolitionist, and in reality, he's a white supremacist that didn't want black people around. I'll put up with them, but we don't want them to be too many. He's a supremacist. Now, what happens after he does that? There's another thing that happens. There is you have the American Revolution. What happens with the American Revolution? And all this contributes to this population control thing. What happens within 5 years of him writing Why Increase the Sons of Africa, you get the 7-Year War, or a world war between France and Britain and their allies that you know from school, if you had history. It's the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, was fought in Africa, Europe, North and South America, and Asia. In case you didn't know that. Again, there was a world war before World War I between England and France, in part over black people. Oh, yes, we're always in the middle. And the English got some colonies. The French got some colonies. Actually, the French lost Canada, right? Because Malcolm, and they had the Battle of Quebec, and they took over. And at the end of the French and Indian War, Great Britain got Canada. The French were driven out of India. England became the dominant seaborne power. And something else happened. In fact, remember something, that England became the key country to import enslaved black people from the Pope, because they got the Asiento in 1713 from the Peace of Utrecht. Hold on, let me explain what I'm talking about. I gotta give y'all this. I hope I'm not boring you. Has the number dropped down to 10 people?
No, sir. Keep going, Dr. Shaw. You're doing great.
Peace of Utrecht. This is how Britain really got rich. They got the right. The Peace of Utrecht was a series of peace treaties signed by belligerents after the War of the Spanish Succession. In a nutshell, the Netherlands and what you now know as Belgium used to belong to Spain. There was a War of Independence, which made Netherlands independent of Spain. It was a very bloody war. But the treaty was signed in the Dutch city of Utrecht between 1713 and 1815. Okay. And there's a fight over who's going to control the Spanish throne. The French, the Spanish, and some other people fighting, different houses fighting. But in a nutshell, at the end of it, and there are different people fighting. The British are fighting. One of these German princes, the two German princes fighting. The Portuguese are fighting. The Dutch are fighting. And, of course, one of these other people. But what ends up coming out of this, once the treaty is signed and the Pope signs in, the British get the monopoly on trading. Here it is, a major coup for the British delegation. The British government emerged from the treaty with the Asiento de Negros. Asiento means the seat or the bank. Asiento de Negros, which referred to the monopoly contract given by the Spanish government. It's not the Spanish government, Wikipedia. It's given by the Pope. The Roman Catholic Church was in charge of the slave trading of black people. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The Spanish had to give it to the English. This is for the Spanish, who had a major, they had Cuba, they had Puerto Rico, they had Mexico. The Spanish had a vast empire. They were getting a lot. They had a big empire. Let us remember that the western half of the United States, Mexico, practically all of that from imagine from Oregon down to Argentina, with the exception of Brazil, because of the Treaty of Tordesillas from the 1490s, belonged to Spain. Are y'all understanding me? From Oregon to Argentina was Spain. That's a hell of an empire. That's thousands and thousands of miles. So that's a lot of space for you to send Negroes to work for you for free. And a lot of them were in Mexico, and a lot of them were in Honduras and in Venezuela. The main language two main languages spoken on the South American continent are what? Spanish and Portuguese. Now let's read this some more. So the asiento allowed a monopoly contract granted by the Spanish government to other European nations to supply slaves to Spain's colonies in the Americas. The asiento de negros came about due to the fact the Spanish Empire rarely engaged in the transatlantic slave trade itself, preferring to outsource this to foreign merchants. Bourbon, France, Bourbon is a royal French house, had previously held the asiento, allowing the French slave traders to supply 5,000 slaves to the Spanish Empire each year. France had gained control over this contract after Philip V became King of Spain. After the British government gained access to the Asiento de Negros, the economic preeminence held by Dutch, Sephardic, Jewish slaveholders began to fade. But let me just tell you, some of those Dutch, Jewish slave trading people moved to England with William of Orange. You've heard of William and Mary? The school? Okay, I'm just saying. I'm not picking. I didn't say they had all of it. They're the ones that wrote this shit in the article. I'm not picking. I'm not saying if somebody did everything. Don't y'all say that. Are you understand? So England got rich off of selling because they also were taking over slaves themselves. But sit down and think about this. They were supplying to that vast Spanish empire just 5,000 Africans each year. How are you going to explain the millions that we're being told were brought from Africa here with just 5,000? If it were 20,000, it still wouldn't make sense to the numbers that we hear. Didn't you think about that when I said 5,000? So that means in 10 years, if you know anything about Haiti, people didn't last 5 years in the cane fields. They were worked to death. 5,000. Where were all these damn people? My friends, some of them were already here. You just heard Benjamin Franklin said the country was populated. This place wasn't empty. We were already here. They brought over some more. Maybe they brought over a lot more, but there were already people here. That's another conversation. That's another reason they want to reduce the numbers. So the Peace of Utrecht, let me just go back. So England is getting rich.
Somebody asked in the chat, and I apologize for interrupting you. Somebody asked for you to spell that. The Peace of Utrecht.
Utrecht is spelled Utrech. Utrecht.
Thank you.
And that's okay. Eventually, when we do these, what's that thing called? When we do these webinars, it'll be a lot easier to share this information. Thank you for asking the question. It's a horrible name, horrible practice, but you need to know.
For you guys in
The
the
Brit-
chat, I do, when you ask a question, I will highlight your question and we'll ask it towards the end of the show. But Dr. Short is basically giving us a history, and I appreciate him for taking it back even further than I expected. And for you guys, if you guys got to get some coffee, get some water, get your popcorn, get your notes, get your pens,
we're going to get there in a second. Trust me.
take your time, Dr. Short. You're not boring any of us.
I want folks to understand that. So when they talk about England and all this money, it's all of this, they took it out of our asses. And so England has the monopoly. And of course, England has the most ships. Its army has always sucked. The Germans beat their asses in 2 world wars. They had to get bailed out. Napoleon beat their armies. They needed the whole damn European nations to fight Napoleon because the British army has sucked, but Britain has always been great as a navy. Spain ceased to be, since we're going to talk about Spain and the War of the Spanish Succession. 1713 is what? It's like 100 plus 13 plus 12. So 125 years after the Spanish Armada, where the British destroyed the Spanish Navy, and during that same period of time, the Spanish, who were so racist, they ran out of Spain their black people, their Moors, and their Jews. Hate is a bitch. They hate so much. I don't even want to be a great power. I hate you so much. I don't want you to make me rich. It's sort of like the white coaches that don't like the black players to make money for them. I mean, it's insane hate. So Spain destroyed its navy. It destroyed itself economically, and it fucked itself up as a country, as an empire, hating black people. And ultimately, it was black people who brought the Spanish Empire down. Let me just do this real fast. Jean-Jacques Dessalines, one of the greatest black men that ever lived, it's the black people in Haiti that supplied weapons and arms to the Spanish colonial revolutionaries that kicked the Spanish out of most of South and Central America, with the exception of Puerto Rico and Cuba. Haiti underwrote the revolutions against Spain. And those countries, these nasty Spanish-speaking illegals and shit that are up here, they got their freedom off of black folks, and they have the nerve to hate our guts. I also want to mention that the first revolutionaries in Mexico were black. One of the fathers of Mexican nationalism, if I'm getting his name right, I believe it's Father Hidalgo. Father Hidalgo, the main people backing his ass up were black people. The only thing that these guys are good at is kissing white people's asses and hating black people and pretending that they're white Spaniards. Yes, I said it. Morales, think about it. There's a province in Mexico called Morales. More, yes, black. And there are places like Afriquita, which is in southern Mexico. Afriquita, what does it mean? The foundations of South American liberation that's not from the white-looking elites that just wanted to break off from Spain come from what are called the Palenques. Palenques are black and black Indian maroon areas or independent areas in which they would not be slaves to white people. You had independent black kingdoms, if not states, in Central America as early as the 1520s, and places like Panama, in case you had not heard this. In fact, the black folks who were not going to be slaves were so tough They ran away. They worked with the British pirates to undermine what's called the Spanish Main. What's the Spanish Main? The Spanish Main was essentially a wealth transfer. What's that thing called? What's that chain? How do you call that? There's this chain that they're talking about, and forgive me for not remembering how they use that language. You know, the supply chain. There it is.
Oh, okay.
It was a wealth transfer supply chain. What am I saying? I'm saying that silver and gold taken out of a place in Bolivia called Potosi. There was a mountain in Bolivia that was made of literally silver and platinum. That's how rich it was over here. Let me get you the spelling. I'm not trying to talk over your head. Potosi is spelled Potosi. It's a city in Bolivia. It was one of the most important places in the world because it had all of this wealth that they would, look, there was a mountain that was full of silver. It was a major source of silver for the Spanish Empire. And the silver would be taken from the mountains of Bolivia down to the Pacific coast, put on ships, and places like Callao and other places. Callao is the port city for Lima, Peru. And it would sail north all the way up to the Isthmus of Panama. Other people thought about a Panama Canal before white Americans did. And then by mule train would be carried from the Pacific coast of Panama to the Caribbean coast. These were treasure fleets. They would also try to take it to Acapulco, or they would send it sometimes to, by the way, silver was the preferred trading currency of choice for many Asian societies, in particular the Chinese. The Chinese trade coin was called the tael. The tael is spelled, I believe, Tael in English. The Chinese would not do business with you if you did not pay in silver. At the time that I'm making reference, even though the Europeans had major empires, the most productive, wealthiest society in the world then was China. And so the Chinese, basically, their dollar, the way that you dealt with them is you needed silver. And we'll touch on that because the Chinese and silver and all of this has a little to do with the slave trade and also with evolution and birth control. But I'm saying to you that these Spanish Main, these mule and trains that would go across Panama would get jacked up and set up by black guerrilla fighters who would split the proceeds with the Sea Dog English. And it was kicking the Spanish Empire in the ass. These black people who sometimes even hijacked ships and just took all the stuff they wanted. They won't teach you that. They won't teach you, no, a lot of, and so these black Panamanians were not kissing ass. Moving right along. So Spain, on top of that, Spain's navy The British pirates jacked up the Spanish Navy, stealing everything, raiding places. Jamaica, or Jamaica, the Spanish pronunciation, was a Spanish colony until the British took many of the Spanish possessions. Remember, I told you there's a treaty between the Pope and the King of Spain and Portugal to divide the world in half. Africa was given to the Portuguese, and the Americas, with the exception of Brazil, were given to the Spanish, meaning that everything in the Americas belonged to Spain at one time, and France and England and other places came in and said, remember, something happened in the 1500s. Shortly after the Pope split the world in half, you had what? The Protestant Reformation. The little bald-headed monk that got tired of hitting himself on the nuts with whips and decided that God told him pussy was good and that he didn't need a bald-headed queer Pope to tell him how to talk to God. So you get the Protestant Reformation. All of a sudden, people don't give a damn about what the Pope says anymore. So all of these countries that break off, or at least in some ways, do what they want to do instead of following the Pope like they once did, came to the Americas to take what they could get, in particular off the backs of Aboriginal and African people. And of course, in other places of the world, they ripped off all the Asians and everybody else. So Spain is more or less corrupted by all the gold and wealth, but they didn't have manufacturing because they kicked out their smart Jews and their smart black people. Spain still hasn't recovered from kicking black folks in the ass, saying, I hate you. You can't make me rich and successful. I hate you so much. Well, be broke, cracker. And they are. Now, moving right along, back to England and back to America. So you get, with the 7-Year War I was mentioning, or AKA the French and Indian War, it should have been, what happens is you're fighting a war all over the world. And remember, England was rich, but it wasn't that rich. Wars always make countries go broke. So what do these people have to do? They start taxing. And of course, the white Americans, who are cheap and stingy, as Benjamin Franklin said, these people didn't want to work hard themselves. So they're basically risking losing control of America, bringing over blacks that they don't have to pay, right? So you don't want to pay your labor. You don't want to pay taxes for the protection of the British Army, right? In fact, let's just talk about it. What really helped start the 7-Year War or the French and Indian War? I'm glad you asked. A certain gentleman who would have sex with underage slaves, who had a bad complexion and had his teeth pulled out of the mouths of his slaves, named George Washington, executed 2 Frenchmen with the tomahawk, busting their heads open and making their brains spill out. Basically helped start a war between England and France. Yeah, George Washington was a cold-blooded murderer. You don't have the right to murder anybody. There's no state of war. And you just chop someone's head open, 2 people. Y'all weren't taught that? You never heard that before, Q? That George Washington just chop 2 people's heads open?
I went to, my elementary school was called Washington, Dr. Short.
He was deviant. He was deviant. Anyway, he was a slave-holding murderer. That's the father of you guys' country. I was told I was related. I hope not. And by the way, you heard 23andMe got hacked. I'm so glad they don't have my shit. I'm glad y'all rejected me. Go to hell, 23andMe. Shit, I'll just go to African ancestry. Up yours, crackers, racist. Anyway, back to my thing. So what happens is the French and Indian War mess with the budget for the British Empire, and they say, you know what? These crackers and rednecks that we get rich over in America, they need to pay for the shit that little asshole George Washington started. We're going to tax their asses. They're going to pay. Plus, we have to keep soldiers over there because they keep fucking with taking the Indians' land and shit. And, you know, every time we make a treaty, these people break it because, you know, they know that they've got this whole thing called racism that's been developing since the 1660s, and you're hating people based on what they look like, and you're killing them, and you're doing genocides and such. We can't even tell them not to take shit from the Indians because they'll do it any damn way. Even though the British had alliances with the Indian nations, we're talking about the Iroquois and the Mohawk and all these other people were legitimate business partners. And these white American folks, they're covenant breakers, they're liars, they're chiselers, they're worse than the British, but they're the same people. So they have British soldiers here, and it costs money. Just like having police and firemen. Firemen don't work 24/7. You only work when there's a damn fire. So when you have men that are sitting around, they're not producing. That's expensive to just have people available in case something happens. Now, so the British began taxing the Americans, and so the American Revolution, in part, is the cheap, stingy corruptness of white American elites. They don't like paying their share. You want your labor for free, and you don't want to pay taxes. This is why this country is fucked up right now. Still, they don't respect work. In Germany, a lot of other countries in the world, their minimum wage, it's unheard of not to pay people enough money if they do work. It's only here where people want to pay you the same thing they paid you 30 years ago. And yet all the prices and everything went up, right? But they will pay for the military to shoot you. They do believe in that, guns. But anyway, let's just stay with this. So there are a couple of other things that have happened. I'm going somewhere with this. So these people don't want to pay for the taxes for their own defense, right? And there's another thing that has happened. The English have, as have other places throughout Europe, been bringing black people from Africa and the Americas to England. This is like the 1760s? They've been bringing them to England for about 150 years. That sounds, and there were already some there. There were Moors. There were already brown people in England. But then there's new ones. Now, let me move somewhere. There is a move, and let me just tell you about this. We're in the 1770s. 200 years before Roe v. Wade, a Nigerian young man or Igbo guy was sold into slavery by his sellout Nigerian people, taken to Virginia, and then his master took him to England. And this young guy ran away, and this guy ended up getting help from other people, and he sued and he won his freedom in what's called the Somerset case. Let me see if I can get this dude's name. The Somerset case. It was decided in 1772 in Great Britain. Somerset case. It's called Somerset versus Stewart. Listen to this. The judgment of the English court. It said the right of an enslaved person on English soil not to be forcibly removed from the country and sent to Jamaica for sale. In other words, this black dude who ran away. Said, I don't want to go back to Jamaica. I've had a good time in England, right? This guy's name is James Somerset. He was purchased by a guy named Charles Stewart. By the way, the name Stewart means black. How about that, y'all? These are people of African descent in Europe, owning people as slaves. That paper bag shit is real. He was a custom officer when he was in Boston. And then he brought him to England in 1769. But in October 1771, Somerset ran away. He busted a move. They had him locked up and they're going to send him back to Jamaica. And he, in fact, to punish him, Stewart was going to work him to death on the sugarcane plantation. And his white friends basically represented and got him into court. And that Somerset case outlawed slavery in the British Empire, in particular for Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Great Britain. I'm going somewhere with this. And you need to understand that there was slavery in England for white people until a black person got them their damn freedom. We freed everybody but ourselves. The Somerset case ended what's called the lineage. The lineage is the English word for people being slaves to the English version of a plantation, which is called a manor, or an estate of rich people. Let me get the spelling of it. I want to make certain that okay, Villein is spelled V-I-L-L-E-I-N. He's a feudal tenant. This is a nice way of saying they're a damn slave, a sharecropper. A feudal tenant entirely, literally, entirely means totally, subject to a lord or manor to whom he paid dues or services in return for land. It's a glorified word for saying an old English sharecropper. And you never come out of debt, so you're slaves all your life. This abolitionist movement, this Nigerian through America, then English kid, his case ends the enslavement of white and other people in England, in case I never told you this. And the Somerset case absolutely created a problem. It was great for a minute, but it scared the shit out of who? It scared the shit out of people in British North America. Why? Something happened. If you did Revolutionary War history, y'all remember the thing called the Intolerable Acts? Remember that? And when you heard why white people wanted to get away from England, sure you did. The Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts. The Intolerable Acts. It's called the Coercive Acts of 1774, known as the Intolerable Acts in the American colonies, were a series of 4 laws passed by the British Parliament to punish the colony of Massachusetts Bay for the Boston Tea Party. The 4 acts were the Boston Port Act, the Massachusetts Government Act, the Administration of Justice Act, and the Quartering Act. And sometimes this mentions the Quebec Act. Now, let me just say something to you. This thing skips a page, but let me go back. So these are things that they did. I'm going to send this to you. Oh, my God, I'm on the right phone, so I can send this to you. I can start sending this to you, and you can post it. But I want to give you another one, brother. This is part of what they said they were mad about. But They need to act. There's another one. Let me tell you the real thing that they don't want you to know about. Hold on, let me pull it up. Now, what you need to understand, this thing is called, I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send it to you right now. I'm going to use this damn wiki. I know where to find it there. It's called the Declaratory Act. The Declaratory Act of 1766. What did the Declaratory Act do, Dr. Short? Why are you bringing up all this shit? The reason I'm doing it, people, is the American Colonies Act of 1766, commonly known as the Declaratory Act, which is what we're taught in our schools here, was an act of the Parliament of Great Britain which accompanied the repeal of the Stamp Act of 1765 and an amendment of the Sugar Act. These are two tax things that these people said hell no to. Okay, the Parliament repealed the Stamp Act because boycotts were hurting British trade and used a declaration to justify the repeal and avoid humiliation. So the white folks did a Bud Light. And these people says, you know, we fought a war for these crackers and they don't want to pay for it. But let me share with you what it really did. The declaration stated, listen, that the Parliament's authority was the same in America as in Britain, and asserted the Parliament's authority to pass laws that were binding on the American colonies. In other words, the American Colonies Act of 1766 took self-rule from all the 13 colonies. In other words, they were basically sort of like when you have a when you have a city controller, you know, when they go into a black city when they're mad and they make a white person and put them in charge of the city, and the mayor and the city council, and none of those people have any say really, and whatever that manager says is so. Well, the British government basically, with the Declaratory Act, said, fuck whites in America. We tell them what to do because we're pissed. Now, 6 years later, if they said slavery ended in England, then by the Declaratory Act, slavery should have ended for blacks in America in 1772. The American Revolution, my friends, that you've been told is a goddamn lie. The American Revolution was fought to hold on to their chattel slavery, the same way the Civil War was fought, the same way the War of 1812 was fought, in part over the fact that the Americans and the British were fighting over the 60 to 80,000 black people that was stolen from the wealthiest families in America and taken to the Caribbean and Europe by the British as punishment for people's rebellion. Are y'all getting me? It's slavery, 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 money, money, money. The OJs ain't never lied. Gambling Huff, those moosey niggas was telling the truth. Money, 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 money. Seriously, some people, definitely rich white people, got to have it. They've got to have it. They really need it. So the Declaratory Act combined with the Somerset Act basically reduced white people almost to a level of being niggers, and took their main property, which was niggers, away to get them back for not buying their damn sugar and stamps and not paying the taxes, for sending these popos and redcoats to kick the French and Indians in the ass. Are y'all with me? Now, I'm saying all that to say, so this happened, and what happened by 1775, you have Lexington and Concord, and a lot of you guys don't know that. Do you really think, sit down and think about it, who would want to have a gun in 1775? Wouldn't you want to have a gun if you were a black person living out away from the city without a critical mass of black people? Wouldn't you want to have a gun? And the reason I'm saying that to you is, okay, let's do two more. You guys know about, let me send this to you. That Paul Revere's ass got everything wrong. Lexington and Concord, black folks are owed a great debt. White folks are never going to pay it. I think this guy's name is Cheswell. The name is so weird. Wentworth Cheswell. Wentworth Cheswell was the black man that rode with Paul Revere, who made it to Lexington and Concord. Paul Revere went to the wrong fucking place. Okay, so it's a black man that knew where the brothers and sisters were, who went to his black friends in Lexington and Concord. So some of the people who shot down the British, who kicked their asses and the British ran, what do you think would make a white man run in 1775 faster? Some black people shooting at them or some white people? See, my mind would be blown if I'm a white supremacist and I see a bunch of niggas with guns who don't care. See, they never tell you about who shot, who was at Lexington and Concord. They're black people in Lexington and Concord now. Okay, and we forget that a whole bunch of people that lived in Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts are black Indians. There's a significant black Indian population in Massachusetts. When you hear about the Wampanoag and Narragansett and the Mashpee, they look like Brother Dome here. You've been up to Massachusetts. You know, the black folks have been there for hundreds of years. The Indians, this whole straight air Indian shit is a damn lie. Some did, some didn't. So the American Revolution starts off with the black dude going to check out his homies and shit. The motherfuckers are coming back. Get some gats. You got to smoke these people. They're coming. I mean, why would Paul Revere know where the black neighborhood was? Think about it. Why did the brother know in the dark? He knew how to get to the black neighborhood. We know where we are. I didn't say everybody in Lexington and Concord was black. I'm saying that they were there. And not only that, the kind of warfare where they were ducking behind trees and shit shooting, that's Indian warfare. And the French and Indian War, the French and Indians initially were winning during Indian warfare. You have to either be an Indian or be taught by an Indian to do Indian warfare. You understanding me? When the British were getting shot from behind trees and shit, that's not British military tactical fighting. That's Indian fighting. Who's going to do the Indian fighting? Indians. Or people that are around Indians. That's what they don't care about, the damn American Revolution. Now, what happens in 1775 after the British, not only do they get their asses beat at Lexington and Concord, which is a shock to them, then you had a bunch of niggas that knew how to shoot, Peter Salem being one, where the British officers were getting smoked and shot down by the blacks who were the best fighters in the American army. The British said, shit, we got to fight our own people and niggas too. So what did they do? Lord Dunmore in 1775 said, you know what, we're going to bust this shit up. We're going to offer niggas their freedom. They should have had that shit 3 years ago anyway. And a whole lot of black people got with the British and got their goddamn freedom. Well, and some went to Canada, some went to England, some went to Wales, some went to Jamaica, some went to Trinidad, some went to Guyana, some went into the swamps, some went further west, some went with Indian tribes, they did whatever. But I'm just saying to you that remember, Benjamin Franklin said, you don't want too many niggas. We don't need all. We're going to have a problem. They're thieves. They're going to fight against us. You need a driver. I mean, now you're going to give their asses guns and shit. Sit down and think about that. When we talk about population control, part of what you want to do is get rid of the male population that can fight you, that can resist you. And there's already a history, because what's been going on since about, let me just send this to you. Are you getting these things that I'm sending to you on text? I hope you're sharing.
Yeah, I'm putting them in the chat. For those of you in the chat, you know that I'm putting these links in the chat, so you can always go back after the broadcast and cross-reference, and it'll definitely have you looking at American history that we was taught definitely in America differently if you didn't know these things, and it'll give you a different perspective on
why we need some motherfucking money. They owe us this shit.
Yeah, and how like Dr. Short said something in the beginning of the show, how we inadvertently uphold white supremacy. And he's explaining the backdrop of it in this country and globally. And we got a lot of show left, you guys. So make sure that you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you share with people. One of the things is in the analytics is that I can always tell how many new viewers we get. So I know that we're getting a lot of returning viewers, and I appreciate you guys for coming back and supporting the show and what we're trying to do. So make sure that you like, share, subscribe. You can continue, Dr. Short.
Now, I just want to tell you, there was already a problem that had happened where they're worried about black people. Now, what you get, the official story is the War of Jenkins' Ear, in Spanish, Guerra del Asiento, which was from 1739 to 1748. Now, sit down and think about that. You had literally a 9-year war, right? And then remember, they had another war from 1755, 56 to 1763. All this damn fighting that these British had to do over this shit here in America. You know, it got old and it got expensive, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what happened, according to one of these people, a gentleman by the name of Robert Jenkins, a British captain on a naval ship, had his ear cut off by Spanish Coast Guard searching his ship for contraband, probably for black people. And what ended up happening, listen to this, in response to the incident was tepid until opposition politicians in Parliament, backed by the South Sea Company, used it some years later to incite support for a war against Spain, hoping to improve British trading opportunities in the Caribbean. One of the things they want to do is trade in black people. They also wanted to retain the lucrative Asiento de Negros, giving the British slave traders permission to sell slaves in Spanish America, which is why the Spanish call it Guerra del Asiento. They talk about the goddamn ear, and it's a war about black people. Okay, the British attack the Spanish and Colombia, Cartagena, and Havana, right? But ultimately, there's some fighting that happens where? In Florida and Georgia. And I want to say to you that some of the fighting is a continuation, because what happened, there was another thing, I'm going to send it to you, where black folks were rebelling, the Seminole Wars, also called the Negro Wars, that as early as that time, you had black people fighting the Spanish, the French, and the English. Are you getting me? I'm just trying to tell you something. And so you've got this fighting going on, and there's a thing that happened in South Carolina. Let me see if I can get it. I'm trying to think of which year this is. Yes, here it is. Oh my God, same day my daddy died. Ooh. Stono Rebellion. Remember I said this thing ended in 1748, but started in 1739. What happened in 1739, just before this War of Jenkins' Ear, or around that time? The Stono Rebellion, where black folks rebelled on the 9th of September in 1739 in South Carolina. It was the largest slave rebellion in the American colonies to that point, right? And the American colonial history. Let me send this to you. So the Negroes went, and what were they trying to do? They were trying to get to Florida so they could fight against the English. You see, if you got to Spain and England were fighting. The Spanish opened the doors to Florida. If you could get down there, they'd leave you alone as long as you keep the English out. The word got around, people. So you had a war, a guerrilla war and a conflict with some Indians, but also with black people before the damn American Revolution. And they kill white folks and burn up and destroy shit. I also want to say during the American Revolution, 100,000, tens of thousands of black people ran away during the American Revolution. They don't really have a good number, but it was vast. And they know that tens of thousands were taken out of this country. There's no other group of people that have given this kind of pushback to Mr. Bobo and Miss Bobo, aka feminist, the one that the silly black women run up after because they think munching white carpet's gonna make them equal. Good luck. Anyway, so you understanding me? America is having problems as well as wars with various indigenous groups. And there were even efforts in Virginia and other places where these indigenous groups sometimes got with black people and tried to turn white people out. And I want to do this again because we left something out. What happened 100 years prior to the American Revolution? You had Bacon's Rebellion. What's Bacon? Basically, it was a redneck, high yellow mulatto, Indian, and African free-for-all rebellion against the 1% English people, the ones that owned everything. And they almost took down colonial Virginia. Are you understanding me? And these people began. So you have these black Indians, blacks, free, mulattoes, whites. I don't know how neat their thing was, fighting to get theirs. So imagine over and over and over again, you have these black people because they can be a real problem even when you've got guns everywhere, even when you're selling them, beating them, cutting their nuts off, hanging them upside down. This one who may trip out and cut your head off. People need to understand that it's underreported. Under the system of slavery, it was commonplace for black people to kill their white overseers. And by the way, those people didn't really have that much value. Sometimes a black could kill a white low-class person that was too hard on them, and they would just sell that person's ass to another plantation. That was an occupational hazard that you picked the wrong slave and got your ass cashed in. They don't tell you that. Yes, some people say, shit, I'm going to die, but I'm going to kill your ass first. As long as I kill you, I don't care I just got to kill you. I got to cut your ass. Got this big machete. Shit, I see some sugar cane. I want to cut it. It's got some blonde hair on it, right? People did do this. And that's why throughout the Americas and other places, you had jails and prisons to punish folks because, remember, he said that slaves are thieves. In reality, the thief is the excuse. The real thing is that a slave, an enslaved person, will resist being enslaved. That's our crime, as we just won't suck the shit out of their ass with a smile. Let them go down to Jamaica, where they made hip hop. Anyway, let me say that. Anyway, all right, moving right along. So you have Bacon's Rebellion, where they literally had to invent racism to prevent whites from having common cause with Indians and blacks and mixed race people, because they almost tore the whole thing up. That's 100 years before the American Revolution. So every time you turn around, it's these goddamn black people. You just have to keep them down. They're always going to tear up stuff. They're going to, because they're screwing us. Now, so you have the American Revolution, and even that, were it not for black people, the American Revolution would have been won by the British. It's a fact. Had it not been for black people, the War of 1812 would have been won by the British. Commodore Perry, the naval hero of the American, the War of 1812, is a mulatto. The Battle of New Orleans, the most significant land victory, most of the people that fought, the best sharpshooters in the country, were black people, mulattoes and freedmen and so forth. Just a fact. It's a black man that shot the British officer, the general of the British land forces going to attack the city of Baltimore. It's a black man who blew the man's head off. And remember, I said at the Battle of Bunker Hill, which is actually on Breed's Hill, it's a black man named Peter Salem who busts the cap in the head of the leading British officer, which caused confusion. Every time you turn around, the main spy of George Washington that gave him the information to trap the British at Yorktown was black. In Valley Forge, not far from where you live, Brother Q,
I know exactly where it is.
Up to a third or more of the people at Valley Forge were black. Blacks comprised anywhere from 25% to a third of the American colonial forces. They would have never won without us, and they didn't even give us freedom typically. How were we rewarded? We were rewarded with them having the Constitutional Convention in 1787, and they couldn't even agree to a constitution for this country until they agreed that you can't bring any more black people into this country after 20 years. So the official date that they were supposed to stop bringing black people from Africa to America was 1808. In other words, the white folks couldn't even agree to a country if they didn't have a way to control what? The black numbers.
More proof that we were the labor force.
So then there's another piece to it. This whole gun culture that everybody talks about here. The first Fugitive Slave Act is in the 1790s. So one of the first federal laws is we got to do something about niggas. When the first thing they did in the Constitution as providing for militias, that was a militia to fight the foreign army. That's a militia to fight black people. Our numbers and how we're treated is a social problem. All right, now I want to say something to you. I mentioned the War of 1812. I'm going to do the War of 1812 real fast. There's an ongoing feud. The last days, the dying days of the American Revolution, George Washington was up in New York City, arguing with the British general to give him back the black folks who had run to New York to get the hell away from his ass in Mount Vernon. The British officer didn't comply. These blacks were taken to Nova Scotia and other places. And a lot of us have family in Canada and Africa. I do. I have family in Canada, and I have family in Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana, and maybe some in Nigeria, because the people were taken out. Everybody's ass didn't make it out. I need to say to you, when America angry about the fact that these thousands and thousands of people were taken from Thomas Jefferson. The British armies and the American Revolution targeted the plantations of the Patriots to say, if you want to hurt them, take their niggers. That was repeated in the Civil War. If you want to break the South, free blacks. Not because we like them, but if you want to break down the people who are giving us hell, take away the one thing that they live off of. Same way you had to kill the buffalo to wipe out the Indians, take the niggers away from white folks, the rich, and they're nothing. We are the fucking buffalo to white supremacy. We need to stop doing that. Anyway, there's an ongoing fight. There are two fights, actually, and it's all around black people still. One fight is the United States goes broke trying to bail out the French who are trying to wipe out the black people in Haiti because they want to be free. And then in addition to that, steadily, there's an ongoing guerrilla war going on in Florida and Georgia, and between the Indians and blacks fighting, the Creeks and others fighting the U.S. government. This is a real issue, and it's breaking the country's ass. Now, that's going on, and then the British, who are fighting with Napoleon, America's playing both sides, giving shit to the French and giving shit to the English, trading both sides, benefiting from the war, just like America did in World War I, that got the damn Lusitania blown up, right? Just, playing both sides, like selling shit to the Iranians and selling shit to the Iraqis. You know the drill. Now, what happens? The British began taking people and claiming that they're British because they need sailors in their war against Napoleon, and they're taking them. All that's a pretext, because what was going on before that, all those years, was a fight between the rich white Americans who had lost their blacks enslaved persons to the British. And that's how you really got the War of 1812. And part of what happened to the War of 1812, I'm just trying to tell you that blacks from Canada, not once but twice, have invaded the United States to help black Americans out. This is what they don't teach you. The only people who've ever really twice came to the aid of black Americans are black Canadians. That's what you haven't been taught. So black Canadians joined the British Army and the Navy to fight against slavery in the United States in the War of 1812. And not only that, waged a guerrilla war in the Chesapeake area. This is why this damn Star Spangled Banner is a white hate song that people were singing and drinking because they were mad about the niggas that were shooting white people, burning their shit, taking stuff. You didn't know that. There was a guerrilla war and the Delmarva Peninsula. That's where Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia all have portions of the same peninsula. That's the frontal part of the Chesapeake Bay that the British were landing raiding parties, hooking up with black people that didn't give a fuck, and were smoking up, shooting, terrorizing white people, and getting black folks to join what's called the Colonial Marine. It should have been called the Nigger Marine, where the British created a black army to terrorize white people. They repeated what they did in the American Revolution. It led to the first 9/11, where something like between 800 to 1,200 black folks were their own brigade, right? And they faced off with American troops about 5 miles from my house in a place called Bladensburg. And when the white folks saw all these niggas with guns and uniforms, the United States military ran because they had not seen niggas with guns who didn't give a damn. White people are bullies. They fuck over us because they think that they're going to win and they have nothing to lose. And our sellout leadership, our stupid, done-fuck, pork-chop feminist women and fagonist men, and folks who think if we just kiss enough ass, things will change, convince the bullies that they don't need to do anything differently because they don't even treat other people in this country legally with the same disrespect that they treat us. It's our fault that we accept it. But when they saw those British colonial Marines, and some of them may have even noticed damn, he ran away with the gun. I raped his mom. Oh shit. Oh snap. I'm getting down Federal Highway 1 to DC. I got to get out of here. You man, they're going to run trains on us like we did to them when they were kids. Man, I thought he was buck broken. His bayonet's pointing at me. Are you understanding me? These white folks had a damn meltdown. And these Negroes came all the way through Bladensburg, all the way to D.C., and they set Washington, D.C. on fire. They burnt up everything except for the black areas. Hint, hint. You don't know who did that? You mean you burnt the Capitol and the White House and you didn't bother the black area? Remember when they would put on the windows during riots, Soul Brother? You don't want me. Are you understanding me?
Yeah.
Because Washington, D.C. had a sizable black population. There should have been a massacre if they wanted to fight black people. They didn't bother black people. Hey, what's up, man? Why don't you just leave? I mean, you could just go to Canada. It's cold as shit, but you don't have to deal with these people, right? They burnt Washington, D.C. to the ground. But before they did that, you know, they smeared shit on the walls of the White House. You know, pissed. Like the people did on January 6th. Blacks did it first. Okay. Fucked the White House up, ate the white people's food. In fact, you know it's Negroes. Why? Because that bitch Dolly Madison, the president's wife, was so mad about the idea of niggas eating on her good china and silver, that bitch risked her life to go and get the chinaware and plates and shit because she didn't want niggas eating on it. Because that's a Southern custom. You don't let niggas eat on your china or your silver. You know anything, you drink out of a white person's cup, they break it. I don't want to drink out of the same cup a niggas touched. A lot of you guys are young. I'm old. There are things white people, they wouldn't use twice. A black person touched it, it could. If a black person tried a shirt on, people wouldn't want to try it on a coat. They'll never shop in that store again. You don't let niggas try on stuff. You tell them the size, you measure them, you tell them it fits. Let them bring it back when nobody's looking. But you're not going to put it back up on the rack after it's touched a black person. Some of y'all don't know. It used to be that real. If you were a white person and they saw you selling shoes, you touched a black person's foot too much, people wouldn't want that salesperson to sell to them. You touch my kid's foot and you touch a nigger's foot? Nah, then you just sell the niggers. I'm just telling you. So Dolly Madison takes her ass to the White House to get plates and a portrait of the racist George Washington. They tore the city up. And that is why they wrote that Star-Spangled Banner, because Francis Scott Key, a white supremacist that wanted black people to be sent back to Africa where they had a 50-50 chance of dying within a year and a half. The American Colonization Society, real shit. Let me send that because people don't know. Oh my God. I mean, that was one of the first government things to deal with black people, is to send everybody's ass back to Africa that was free. If you're not a slave, you can't be in America. We don't want free black people. Again, it goes back to numbers, people. The whole fear that they had was their thing that they were told is that the free blacks were black women were such whores and black men were so nasty that the free black people would outnumber white people within 100 years. By 1925, black people were supposed to outnumber white people. And there would be a violent racial war in which whites would lose. Again, it's numbers. Numbers. Now I'm going to stop, pause America. I'm going to go to England. Because the War of 1812 ended in 1815 at the Battle of New Orleans, which was in 1814, if I'm correct. And the peace treaty occurred in Ghent, a city in Belgium. And part of what happened, if I've got the name right, the Queen of Spain, I think her name was Isabella, she negotiated an agreement. The thing that really ended the war was just something like 3
Hey, Dr. Short, I lost your volume for a second. I don't know what happened on your end. Hold on, you guys. Dr. Short will be back with us in a second.
That's
There you go. I
disgusting.
can hear you now.
Man, that is disgusting. Why did it do that?
I don't know. I didn't lose communication with you. I just lost your volume, which was
Okay.
interesting.
Uh, I logged back in because this thing, I can't see the thing. It disappeared. I didn't do anything. No, hold on.
All right,
It's echoing again. Hold on.
no. Leave it open. Leave the other one open. I see it. All right, you there?
No, I logged out.
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you well. They can hear you.
You can?
Yeah, they can hear you as well.
Okay, fine. I don't know what you heard me say last because
You were talking about leave America for a minute and let me go to England.
okay. Before I go to England, I want to make certain we talked about the Treaty of Ghent.
No.
Okay, that's why this thing, I hate that so much when it cuts off.
You said you was at Queen Isabella.
Yeah, Queen Isabella, and let me make certain that I got this right, because there's so many names and things. I don't like to give people bad information. That makes me feel bad. I've been lied to enough. I want to know the damn facts, or get the hell out my face, right? I don't like when people. I would rather I check almost every.
I lost you again. You're in the studio. I just can't hear your volume. Hopefully, you guys in the chat, Dr. Short will be right back with us. Now I can hear you now.
There's something going on with this, with the signal here. Okay.
You just logged in with the other one. Do you want me to get rid of one of them?
Get rid of. I couldn't see the other one.
All right. I'm gonna log you in. I'm gonna take you out of the first one. Could you hear me, Dr. Short?
Yeah, I did. Why does that double like that? I go looking for it, I can't find it. So I log back in, then it's double. That's weird. Okay. Now we're talking about Queen Isabella, and I just want to make certain that when we do the Treaty of Ghent, so we can do that, because I'm going to bring it full circle. Now, You heard me talk about the Colonization Society?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do this real fast. The Treaty of Ghent, the end of the War of 1812, took effect February 15th, 1815, signed day before Christmas, 1814. One of the key things is, and I want to see if I've got this thing, agreement. Let me see if it gives it. Yes. Wait a minute. Okay. Here we go. And the number, I've seen a different number, but I'm going to stick with this. Look. What happened and the Treaty of Ghent, all the prisoners of war were released. The Spanish got some of their territory back. The English gave America back 10 million acres, both in Michigan and Maine. What America took from the British and Ontario was given back. But here's what I want. The British promised to return all freed slaves that they had liberated during the war back to the United States. So they freed people again. You didn't know about that. The British came in and liberated black people again as punishment on America. They know how to get next to them. It's just do something for black people. If you want to set a white person off, help a black American. However, look at this. In 1826, the British instead paid the U.S. government $1.2 million to compensate American slaveholders. And listen to this. Both nations, Britain and America, in 1815, agreed to work towards the abolition of the Atlantic slave trade. Now, mind you, America was supposed to have stopped trading Africans in 1808. That's 7 years later, they're still doing the same shit. Now, there's something else I want to bring up, and that is the Queen in Spain, who negotiated the agreement over slaves that were taken during the American Revolution. I want to get this. I want to get the name so we can move on. Hold on one second. I want to get her name. Give me a second. Hold on one second, y'all. I just want to make. I think I got the name right. I don't know where to find that book right this second. But I know that they did this. Hold on one second. And I'm going to go right to what happened, because something started happening, and I'm going to go right to that. Hold on one second, then we can get into. Okay. And if I don't find it, that's something I'll look for. But I know it's the Queen of Spain worked out the deal. And it was several $1 million. That's what also helped in the conflict between England and America to fight over black people. So the American Revolution is fight over black people. The War of 1812 is a fight over black people, in part. That's how essential we are. Just being there, folk are fighting. That's how important we are. Now, the year is 1815. What had happened just a few years before? Remember, the British and the Americans agreed the Treaty of Ghent to do something to bust down the slave trade. But something had happened in England several years before. I'm going to give you that. It's called the Mansfield Decision. The Mansfield Decision is linked to the Somerset case. Okay, it's the same. It's another way of saying it, but here's another thing. What followed the Somerset case? I'm going to get the name of it. I'm going to say it in a second. I want to just make certain I give the right date. Okay. Now, following the American Revolution, as I said, they took quite a few black people to England and other places. Something was established in England, and what? Remember, the American Revolution ended in 1783. Something was established in England in 1786 called the Committee for the Relief of Black Poor. One of the things that they wanted to do, part of helping the poor black people, is sending their ass somewhere else. And this was foundational for the creation of Sierra Leone and Freetown, which is a place where the British were attacking anybody that was shipping slaves. The British were taking these people to Freetown in Sierra Leone. And they also took a lot of black people from Canada to Sierra Leone to Freetown because the Canadians didn't want them and it was cold. Are you following me? And this was part of the work of this committee, was to end slavery in the British Empire. Now, here we go. The Black Poor was the collective name given in the 18th century to the blacks who were poor in London. All right. So they passed this Black Poor law. And what they want to do, they had a lot of them on welfare. And listen to this. Listen to this. The numbers of the black poor in London increased significantly in what? In the aftermath of the American War of Independence, which occurred between 1776 and 1873. Lord Dunmore, the royal governor of Virginia, that said, hey, look, niggas, take up a gun, we'll give you your freedom as long as you shoot these crackers. Lord Dunmore's proclamation resulted in several thousand black slaves running away from the estates of the Patriots, and they fought on the side of the British. I told you that earlier. At the conclusion of the war, the blacks were transported by the British to Nova Scotia, but many of them found their way to London. This thing says historians estimate that black loyalists, these are the people that were taken to Canada, made up half of the poor or half of the black people in London. Okay? So let me just tell you something. I'm going to give you this date and I'm going to get out of here. They began dumping these black people in Africa in May of 1787. That wasn't long, was it? So these people, by a certain point, they were established. Now, something followed. The Americans, right next to Sierra Leone, with this racist-ass Francis Scott Key, said, hey, you guys got rid, because what was happening in America, the number of free black people, the number of black people in this country, believe me, don't believe them when they tell you how many black people there are in this country. They don't want to know. America in 1790 did its first census, and by no way did they know how many people were here. Do you really think Indians that are having wars and shit with white people going to tell them how many people they got? Do you really think if I've got a brother that's an escaped slave, they hide in the swamp, I'll tell you I've got an additional brother? I'm not going to say shit. We don't answer questions. You don't know anything. They don't know. We don't know how many black people are. And I'll give you an example of how crazy it is. If you ever look at the Civil War and you understand that even the number of black people that served in the Civil War, my brothers and sisters, you'll see a number that 185,000 black people fought in the United States colored troops. And they leave out the fact that maybe 100,000 served in the Navy. So that's like almost 300,000, right? But they left something out. Over 40,000 Black people from Canada served in the Union Army, and they all didn't serve in the U.S. colored troops. So that's another, just round out 40, 50,000. You're telling me that your free Black population in the United States is under 500,000 people, and you can put 300,000 men in the field? No, you can't. No, you can't. Are you understanding me? You can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. I mean, so a lot of those folks that run away, but the other thing is, where did they come up with that? And where'd you come up with that many people to take up arms? And then we've got to do another thing, people. There's another dirty secret that if anyone white ever says, we fought for your freedom in the Union Army, it's not necessarily true because they got paid. That's one. People got bonuses and all kinds of shit. But there's another dirty secret. My ancestors fought in the U.S. colored troops, and my grandfather, his white name was George Green. He fought as a white man because he got paid more money. You did like a year or half a year stint. I don't know how you serve for a year and you can muster out, right? If you could pass for white, they paid you $7, $6, $7, $8 more a month than what you would get paid if you were in the United States colored troops. And that's how a lot of Black folks' families got land. They got the pensions at the end of the Civil War. My great-grandfather had two, I think. He had one as a Black and one as a white. That's smart. He gamed the system. How many people, because a whole bunch of us are light-skinned, a whole bunch of us are mixed, how many people you thought were white Union soldiers were passing? A significant number of our people could pass. So if the Union Army had, 1 million men, and of 185,000 of what they said were Black, right? Let's say they had 1.2 million. That too is Black. Just give them that. Then maybe as many as another 100, 150,000 with people passing. And if you put the Canadians in there, my God. So where'd all those people come from? Because everybody couldn't cross the Confederate lines to join the Union Army. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. Where'd all those people come from to take up these damn guns? Because there were more of us than what they want to acknowledge. I've got, my cousin somewhere had records of the plantation that her family was on, that the white owner, because folks don't want to pay taxes, remember? You had to pay taxes on your slaves. Do you think everybody paid the exact amount on the number of slaves that they had? Do you really think so? As much as people lie, cheat, and steal? Brother, think about it. I'm not saying you, but is it reasonable to say that if people could get away with it, if you could cut paying 20% of your taxes, wouldn't you do it? Wouldn't you find a loophole? Wouldn't you? Huh? How many rich people today don't pay 1% taxes? You hear about it all the time, where a person working in Burger King pays more than an executive in taxes. If it's the same mindset, why would white people who were powerful in the South pay taxes for their Black people if they could beat it, if they could game the system, if they were the county commissioner? Why would they pay? Doesn't that make sense to you? So, probably speaking, if you could get a 10% cut in your tax rate, wouldn't you take it?
People do it every day, Dr. Short.
So wait a minute.
Yeah.
So think about it. Everybody here doesn't want to pay their taxes, not as much as they're charged. So let's just say it's fair to estimate that maybe 15 to 20% of people's taxes that they owed on Black folks as slaves, they didn't pay. then that means, out of 4 or 5 million people, that's another million black people that aren't in the mix, that were in the mix. Are you understanding me? Even now, the government undercounts us 15, 20%. The number's political. It's all about numbers. Now, let me just say, Francis Scott Key and others decided to copy the British poor law system because there were all these poor black people in cities across America. And let me just send you another article so you can share with people. They were trying to fill the country up full of white people like what they're doing with the illegals. It's the exact same thing that's happening to us now, began to happen in the 1820s. They began to let the Irish come over. The Irish, their dumb fucks didn't know how to breed the potatoes. So the shit went bad. They didn't do variety, dumbasses. You know, I had different types of tomatoes in my backyard, so no disease would get all of them. I mean, you all planted the same shit. That was stupid. The racist and people come over here hating on our asses, and you can't grow a fucking potato. It's real easy. I had potatoes in my backyard. I don't even pull them up. How did you mess that up? How did you mess it up for years? Why'd you grow something else? Anyway, and by the way, the British did it on purpose. So the British may have killed 1 million, 2 million Irish, starving their asses to death because all the potatoes would go bad. But the British were so mad at them. And remember, the British was struggling. They had just fought the War of 1812. And they got their asses kicked for all they helped to free black people. Those black folks mowed their asses down at New Orleans. So the British need to get their money back. And they basically harvested all the good potatoes and left the rotten ones for the Irish people. So what did the Irish people do? They came to America with that Benjamin Franklin shit. Let's increase the number of white people. And so what happened? About 1820, what happened? You got Andrew Jackson, right? The racist, Indian killer, the one who beat his black female slaves brutally with sticks, the one that massacred the Red Sticks in Alabama, the one that killed Creek Indians. Okay, so you have Andrew Jackson, and he's sort of like the Donald Trump of the 1800s, right? And what follows Jackson coming to power is these immigrants and other people in the white mobs going crazy. And one of the things that they did was they attacked black people. I'm going to see if I can find an article. And there's a very good book. I'm going to send it to you. But from the 1820s, literally all the way up to the draft riots. The draft riot occurred in 1863. They may have killed 1,000 black people in New York. Okay. I just want you to know that it was a commonplace for these people to every year to attack and kill black people in cities all over America. From the 1820s all the way up until, wow. If you sit down and you think about it, you had Jacksonian riots from the 1820s all the way up to the and by the time the Civil War ended, these people were still killing because you had massacres of blacks in New Orleans and Memphis and other places. You had white folks dogging black people in terms of violence all the way up, my friends, really. In reality, my friends, you had this stuff go all the way up to like the 1940s. And in reality, we can extend it because it literally went from like the basically from the 1820s to the 1920s were marked by mass white communal violence against Black people all over the country. And sometimes it would be in more, but this started. And the reason is that Blacks were competition. Blacks had the skilled jobs. These other people wanted to drive the Black people out. In particular, it's a war between white and Black men. That's why Black women don't get racism. Nobody's really fighting you over who can twerk the best. Don't worry, it's coming. Y'all will understand what Black men go through now that they've gotten rid of affirmative action. Y'all are going to get told no as often as we hear no. I'm used to hearing no so much. I don't know. I feel like I'm a simp sometimes. It's just, okay, no. You're used to it. Come on, brother. You know they're saying just no. You apply, so you know they're saying no to you because you're a Black man. You can do everything, and the answer's no to show you can't get it. You watch an incompetent sister, inappropriately short dress, and that nigga get it because they're female and Black. Affirmative action was used to make us not like each other. The same way the public housing thing that they would give the woman and children's shelter, but the man couldn't stay to make the man irrelevant. They're beginning to break that covenant with Black women. In fact, part of the breaking the covenant between the Black man and Black woman is encouraging Black women to kill babies, to not be mothers. How bad that is. And yet you see all these white women running around with baby buckets like they're sex toys. I'm just saying, they're in the alleys with the baby. I've never seen Black women push the baby and stroll in the alley. I mean, I'm here in the hood, what used to be the hood. Anyway, let me just say something to you. So the free Black people are poor, segregated, in the same way that Black folks are ghettoized right now. That was the reality of Black people in the Midwest and other places. Black folks were marginal, and they were subject to mob attacks, as well as kidnapping, human trafficking. The same shit's happening now was going on then. Just now we think our dumbasses, we think we're free. Now, I've done that, so what did they do? We don't want these sorry Negroes to keep reproducing, and so they came up with this bullshit theology. If you just sent Black people back to Africa, God would make Negroes stop being lying, cheating, stealing, grifting thieves, and they would have dignity, and they'd build a nice Christian state in Africa, far away from white America, so they could be happy ever after. Amen. And so racist ass Francis Key and others got together and created the American Colonization Society, and they started taking Negroes to Liberia, where within 2 years, 50% of them would die. And the Negroes in Liberia are so crazy. Even now, it's alleged that their president is in the closet. I got a call from my godson in Liberia, and he told me he didn't want to join the national soccer team because you had to get screwed in the ass to make the team. And that was a goal he didn't want anyone to make. Anyway, right now, Liberia may have a civil war because this nigga's no good. He's corrupt and he hasn't delivered. And you've had an ongoing problem in Liberia since about 1816 when it was established. So again, they wanted to get rid of Black people's numbers. They wanted Black folks to go to Liberia. One of the first mass gatherings of Black people was in Philadelphia in the early 1800s to protest being forced to go to Liberia, that they didn't want to do it because some of them weren't even from Africa and this was their home. Segue. Let's go to, again, back to where we started. Now we can move forward. We had the Civil War, and we don't have to spend much time on that. But remember, the British ended slavery, so they said. And then, of course, in 1859, you have this Harper's Ferry raid, and you also have the publication of The Origin of Species. Within 5 years, supposedly slavery would end in the United States. Now, there are a couple of things that happen. In America, between 1837 and 1841. Let me make certain that I got this thing straight. It's called the gag rule. The gag rule was put in place. The gag rule was put in place because they didn't want to talk about Black people in Congress, to avoid talking about slavery or any issue you couldn't talk about Black people from 1836 to 1844. That was a rule of Congress. Just Black people go away. Just niggas, just disappear. We don't want to talk about it. No, I don't want to hear it, right? Like what's going on in Congress now. So that's happening in the 1840s, and following 1844, in 1846, 1848, you have the Mexican-American War. You expand, that's more slavery, more land, more fighting. White folks can't agree which way they want to go. You get Bleeding Kansas over popular sovereignty, where basically rednecks decide whether they're going to have slavery or not, and that wasn't good enough, and that's where John Brown comes in the scene. And Kansas, where white folks who are pro-slavery and anti-slavery start killing each other, and again, anti.
You guys, Dr. Short dropped. I don't know what's going on. Just bear with me. You're back in, Dr. Short.
Yeah, it cuts off. I don't understand that. I look down and says it's gone. All right. So what did you hear last? So I can keep going.
We were talking about the gag rule. That's what you sent me.
Okay. And wow. Let me go back and think. Gag rule. Okay. Following the gag rule, which ended in 1844, right? You have the Americans going to war with Mexico. And of course, what does that mean? That means that the southern states don't want to be overwhelmed by the northern states. So there's a rush to get the new territories to be at least to balance out for every northern state. The southern states want a slaveholding state. In fact, the state of Texas was supposed to be made into at least two states. So there'd be two slave states. And the city of Houston is named for Sam Houston, a vicious slave owner, who fought against that. Otherwise, Texas would have been two slave states instead of one. Again, Black people and numbers. and there are fights again. Again, numbers. Following the American Revolution, remember, there's this fight, and they get it, where they get the Northwest Territories and the Northwest Ordinances. This is the rules for how these places would become states. One of the first things they said was, again, numbers, we don't want any blacks. No blacks. No blacks are supposed to be in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois. No niggas. And it kept coming down to numbers. Just why won't these people go away? Damn it. Okay, so that's the Northwest Territories. But where the Southerners were, if they're not going to do the work, then someone's got to pick the cotton. They're not going to do it, right? They don't even want to pick the lint off their scrotum. So, okay, for each time you add a northern state, so you get all these states added. And, of course, everybody couldn't agree, and there's a fight, so you get Bleeding Kansas, right? The people that are for slavery, people against, white folks start killing each other like they're going to do soon. And that's why you black women need to stop fucking with Donald Trump. Y'all, we're not ready, black people, to get into a conflict with white folks who are well-armed, organized, and they like being white more than we like being black. We're not up to it. I'm not saying not to defend yourself. I'm not saying don't have a peace. Our peace is. We're not ready for what can go down. We're really not. I mean, we got white folks with emergency food all in their basement and shit, Mormons and stuff. They've been ready for something. I mean, we spend all of our money as soon as we get our check and bumming from people who don't have jobs. Trust me, as a broke Negro, I've had a lot of employed niggas asking me for money. It blew my mind. Where does it go? Well, man, it's just hoes need money. Well, hoes can do tricks. You're in the wrong business. You need to be a pimp. Okay. In Jesus' name. Tell them I said it. It says, in fact, well, what can I do to bring down the price of pussy, Dr. Short? I says, well, a wedding ring. Basically, a wedding ring, it breaks down the pennies per serving if you buy a wedding ring. It's the most economical sex purchase you ever could do. Especially if you just get a band, don't put a stone on that shit. $100 wedding band and shit. I mean, you could blow that shit in Red Lobster. Just getting an extra serving of biscuits. Just saying. Anyway, let me not get in trouble. Okay. Folks, I go to church today. Let me just stop. All right. So, numbers. Now, the Negroes didn't want to go to Liberia. White folks wanted to keep having slavery. And I was saying about the Quakers. That's where I went. The Quakers, before the American Revolution, I was saying to you, one of my ancestors was a Quaker. His white daughter married my grandfather after the Civil War in the 1860s. And he was old. She was horny because he's like in his 50s. That was old back then. She still wanted, probably had a big pipe swinging and shit. Is that your tool? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anyway, your wife is old. I'll outlive her. Marry me. I won't tell anyone if you have two wives. Anyway, but the Quakers began freeing black people in 1775, which is why in Philadelphia you have the Liberty Bell. The Liberty Bell was cast by the Society of Friends, the Quakers, to commemorate their commitment to free black people. The Liberty Bell doesn't have a goddamn thing to do with the American Revolution or white people. It is about the Quakers recognizing that Leviticus tells people to set captives free, that people shouldn't be owned as slaves. The Liberty Bell is about black people. The Statue of Liberty, of course, is about black people. And everyone will keep telling you you're not important, you don't matter, nothing has anything. It has everything to do with you. We are America. They just live here. Moving right along. So you get to the Civil War. And You have a bisexual mulatto by the name of Abraham Lincoln, who's also part Jewish, possibly, who has depression. And by the way, if you don't think Abraham Lincoln was sweet, think about how crazy it is a white dude to be that hateful against black people, has Frederick Douglass over all the time, starts doing all this kind of shit. Let me say something to you about white folk. Not all, but certain white people, if they're sweet on black people, they start ignoring racism, even if it's going to get them in trouble. I'm going to have that black meat. I don't care what anyone does to me. Remember Color Purple? And the guys are beating them, forget about black pussy, and beating him. He's still trying to get the black woman. I don't care what you do to me. Kick me. Set me. When he gets the door, the black woman doesn't even want his damn, you got beat to get some ass. Come on in. Have a seat. Would you like some Pete Snapple? And he says, I'd like some catfish Snapple. I don't think I have that. No, you have a lot of it, right? Remember that in Jungle Fever? And do it, please. Do I have to get beat to get some? He should have been a Q, right? Anyway, let me keep it moving. We get to the Civil War. Black people prevail. You got the bisexual president. And you have another. In fact, you have two bisexuals. What's his name? Help me. Jefferson Davis. He's married to a black woman. He's married to a black woman. He is. Jefferson Davis is married to a black woman. And he's sweet. In fact, remember, he escaped in women's clothes. And even Lincoln was wearing women's clothes to come into D.C. for his inaugural in 1861. Long before RuPaul or Billy Porter. Anyway, and it's rumored by certain people that Jefferson Davis was a mulatto. So imagine if you had two mulatto bisexual presidents. At least Lincoln was more black because he had the white wife. Jefferson Davis was, he wasn't working hard enough to be a white man, although he's on the right side, but not the right bride. Anyway, you have the war. Black folks show up in guns, this, that, and the other. And then you have this problem of numbers again. And what you need to understand is at the same time that the British have purged out their black people and sent them all to Africa. Remember the Black Poor Laws, the Mansfield decision, so. Their sister country, America, has at minimum 5 million or more black people in a country where they don't want us. They really don't want us. And so let's deal with what's happening, friends. At the end of the Civil War, they re-enslave us. But because of that origin of species, a lot of people began to take Darwin's ideas, including his cousin, Francis Galton, who comes up with eugenics at a certain point. And there are other people who come up with this idea that black people are going to die off. And because they never counted this properly, they didn't get a very good count on black people in 1870. And this is, wow, black people aren't going to make it. Because it always had been predicted by George Washington, the founding fathers, that slavery would die off. It wouldn't be their hatred of us. It wouldn't be their exploitation of us, but we would die and we would gradually be replaced by white people, which was what Benjamin Franklin was saying. And, let's increase, the lovely red and white. But instead of that, the black population increased remarkably. One of the reasons is so many people were moving around trying to find their family. The enumeration in 1870 was probably just as jacked up as the one in 1790. But in 1880, they said, damn, the Negroes are growing. What do we do? So remember, I told you there was always this issue. If you set them free, we're going to have a problem. In the case of Jamaica, there was a racist by the name of Thomas Carlyle, who was a Malthusian and a racist, and he wrote a treatise or an essay called The Nigger Question. And his argument was that Jamaica and all the Caribbean was going to sink into bullshit because black folks weren't slaves. And one of the things it was saying is don't do anything to help people in the Caribbean. Don't develop it. Let them die off because they won't work hard. All they want to do is eat tropical fruits and sit out in the sun. As if that's such a bad thing after a couple hundred years of enslavement. Shit. We deserve a vacation from white supremacy, a lifetime one. You know, with some snacks and shit, you know. Some alkaline water too. Anyway, you get this number situation, blacks are increasing, and prior to the end of the Civil War, in fact, this is what happened with the gag rule. I brought the gag rule up for a reason. As the abolitionist movement became powerful, and as the number of black people learning how to read and write increased, in spite of what happened following the Nat Turner revolt, they doubled down on black people not being able to know how to read and write. They called it compulsory ignorance laws. In fact, we live under a custom of compulsory ignorance, which is why black people are stupid and dumb, many, and they think it's cool. That's part of the culture that white people wanted for us, the same way they brought this gangster rap culture, and the same way they brought the abortion culture and the gay culture and the ass-sucking culture and licking and rimming and licking niggas' ass. These things that they keep making and we keep taking as if it's ours. It's a means to degrade us, to control us. And they did the same thing to the Hawaiians. They did the same thing to the Mongoloid Indians. They did the same thing to the Chinese. I'd skip that, but I'll come back to it in a second. People had a problem because as black people began to learn how to read and write, and they learned that this damn slave Bible was bullshit, these people were beginning to do stuff that was blowing white people's minds. People were learning how to read and write and argue against white supremacy. Have you ever seen a black debate team go up against a white debate team and see the white debate team, they're ready to start fighting because you never told us that black people were this smart? I mean, everybody told me the white guys, I'm really the old country lawyer. That's some boring ass shit that they do. They can't really, have you ever watched the British Parliament debates versus the shit the American Congress does with these sorry white people in America? I mean, could you put Joe Biden in the British Parliament? No, they would destroy him because he's dumb. The main thing that holds certain people up here is their economic status and their families, not because they've got any talent or ability. This is something that Thomas Jefferson preached against, that America didn't need an aristocracy, that this society would become decadent like Europe. If you just handed stuff to people because of who their families are, you get people who can't hold a discussion or an argument. All they know how to do is sexually harass people or look at kiddie porn because their families are so rich. If you ever watch the BBC and the way they go up against their minister, and they've got some trained people that embarrass the hell out of the prime minister. You watch the Canadian thing, they talk real stuff. In America, you only get like so many, like a minute and a half to speak. Bullshit. I mean, that dude will be up there and rag on your ass for like an hour, and with people cheering and shit. Here, you only get time's up. How can you even do anything in 2-3 minutes? Especially someone as fucked up as Biden. I'd at least need a half an hour to introduce why I hate him. Anyway, let me just move forward and say to you something. The next piece is that these black people, in particular Frederick Douglass and others, became so effective, along with some white people, in attacking and showing that slavery was evil and it was ungodly. White folks came up with the pro-slavery thought to argue that God said beating and raping black people was good. It made black people healthy. It was the will of God. What ended up happening is that they lost. When they couldn't win with that, then we're not going to have any. We're going to start killing people. You can't disseminate abolitionist material by mail. You can't do this. We're going to just start locking up everybody. Because ultimately, truth and research and knowledge can too prevail. And that's why they get Black people dumb. They've got us on drugs. They've got us fagged out. They've got us diked out. That's part of ruining people so they aren't able to have command of their mind, their faculties, their body. You have a better slave. That's why dope is up in here, where there's a liquor store everywhere, where there's bad food, where they're promoting it.
One second, Dr. Short, 1 second. Hey, you guys in the chat, Dr. Short been giving us history for the last 3 hours. I've been watching you guys in the chat argue for about 40 minutes. Like, really. Like, you know, I'm not into blocking people. I'm not into telling people don't watch. I appreciate all you guys' support. But we're grown, and we need to act grown. Arguing with each other over nothing, or if y'all think it's important enough to argue where you don't want to hear what Dr. Short has to say, just leave. But it's people in the chat that the chat is used to engage with myself so I can let Dr. Short know what people are saying, if they got any questions, or if they want to enforce what he's saying. So please, you guys, nobody has time to waste with looking at people in the chat arguing over stuff that's just not even necessary, bringing up names of people that's not even in the chat or not even on the show. So please, I ask you guys, just if you want to continue arguing, just remove yourself. Pardon me, Dr. Short.
So what we have here is the pro-slavery thought. And when the white people began to lose and pro-slavery, of all things, to people that they presumed as inferior, as not having souls, then they doubled down and began to create fake sciences like craniology and so forth, craniometry, where they claimed that they could measure your intelligence by how many pepper seeds they could fit into a skull. And that's proof that you should be a slave because I could put more pepper seeds. And of course, you like slam the stuff in the white skull. And you get what I'm saying? In fact, get smaller pepper seeds for the white skull. So see, they have 1,000 pepper seeds in this one, but only 100 in the black cranial cavity. It's clear that the black brain is chinned out, right? They started looking for something outside of the Bible because they couldn't win over there. Okay, and for all the people, all the ignorant people in our community, the Bible made black people slave. You're dumbass. You're stupid. You don't even know you're in history. They literally, the Bible became a problem for white folks who are interested in slaves. Said, we got to get out of the Bible. We've got to come up with something else. These niggas are killing us with this damn Bible. And it's interesting. The same sort of people now say get away from the Bible so they can have trans, so they can have sex with kids, so they can cut off your titties, so they can cut off your dick, so they can tell you that you're a dog, and that there are lots of sexes. Same people. Bible's very useful to the point where they hate it. They don't want it. Please, let's get rid of it. It's so caused all the problem. But anyway, when the black people began to beat them and the other white people like William Lloyd Garrison and Lundy, and there were even white folks like Elijah Lovejoy, who was burned to death with his abolitionist press and his books in Alton, Illinois. These people were doing, a handful of people who, by the way, helped create the Republican Party, the real one, not the shit you have today. These people were so effective that small number, 1% of the people in America brought about the Civil War over ending slavery. They did the best they could. Not perfect. But imagine, so they got into this quack scientist and quack science, and one of those people was Charles Darwin and his cousin, Francis Galton, and there was Dr. Sims, And then there's a group, a guy, two doctors, Dr. Knott of Mobile, Knott and Glidden. These people began to do all this stuff to say how blacks were subhuman and how we were happy and da 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 da. Right? That stuff kind of it holds. Those kinds of ideas stay with us all the way up. Really, my friends, literally up until recent times, because even now when your athletes get brain injuries, they ignore the brain injuries of black athletes, even if they're making $100 million a year. And yet a white guy that just starts to get a brain injury is taken seriously. This pseudoscience about blacks not needing painkiller and blacks not this and blacks not that stuff started back in slavery. Now, even with all of that, even with the lynching, even with the mass killing, even with this, the black people's numbers kept growing. Even as they brought more white people in, black folks continued to have a good population. Even they found ways to make it, and so they've been resilient. But along with Francis Galton, who created the School of Eugenics, eugenics is basically application, whereas Darwin basically says the fight of races. His brother says, well, we don't need a fight between races. We need to get rid of the inferior races and have a perfect race. And from Francis Galton and others, they got into pseudoscientific racism to justify white superiority and black genocide. How do you employ it? You had mass murders, you had all kinds of things that people did, but ultimately, the best person at getting rid of black people, the best one was Margaret Sanger. I've been to her papers. I can't prove it, but I really think that Margaret Sanger was bisexual. I believe she was in love with this woman named, her last name is DeViblis from North Carolina. This woman spent all of her time making condoms and birth control devices and things to stick in your vagina. I mean, this woman's obsessed. Like a stopper you could put in your pussy. I mean, you see all the letters, just constantly think about stuff, how you can keep a woman from having babies, how you can get men to get vasectomies, just anything in particular, no black people. Margaret Sanger was a very evil woman, a woman that barely spent any time with her husband, a woman whose quote said the best thing a mother could do to her child is kill it. I've seen Margaret Sanger's papers in the Library of Congress. One of the goals of the American Birth Control League, which she established in 1916, 1917, one of the ultimate goals was to promote homosexuality and abortion. But she couldn't come out with that at first. So you get this noble story of this woman trying to help suffering women, and all these women are dying from abortions and this, that, and the other, right? You heard all that, but ultimately, Margaret Sanger was an ardent racist. She was a Hitler admirer. I have read her own papers where she was arguing with someone that the Nazis were going to win, and her ideas would be worldwide in a way like they weren't then. That the Nazis and other people worked with Margaret Sanger. And I want to say something to you. Margaret Sanger was into Darwin and Galton. Every mass murderer, Stalin, Mao, Ceausescu, all of them, all your mass killers have been Darwinist and Galtonians, because they don't think human beings are anything more than, sort of like a fart or an air or a fly. People don't really matter. And that's why I tell a woman a baby is like an ingrown toenail or a gallstone. It's not a life. Margaret Sanger would travel before the Ku Klux Klan and say, you guys got it wrong. Let me kill off the black people in particular. I know how to work black women. I know how to make black women mad at black men. And she was right. And I'm sorry, black women are the biggest suckers on the earth. They run after these white women that, look, if you don't have any babies, pretty soon there won't be any black women. Dumbass black women. You can hate black men all you want, but if there are no black men to make black children, eventually there won't be any black women. If you hate your own self or you trust white women that much, God help you. And by the way, when you get Sandra Blanded or whatever, like the woman, did I send you that article where the black woman had the white husband that got mad and he ran her over and he only got 20 years for deliberately killing her with his vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to get out in about 5 years, good behavior. They're not going to keep a white man in jail for killing a black woman. We're going to see an explosion and black women getting killed all over the country. I'm not excited. I'm depressed. But, we black men ain't shit. You know how that is. And we never do anything right. And, all white men are every group of men in the world are perfect. You know what? There's 6 million illegals in here. I was on the phone with my buddy in Denver. Black women are disappearing in Denver and children too. It's happening, guys. All these people have come up in here. They're snatching our women and kids. And I guess they'll snatch a dude that's a trick. Being in the sex industry as a woman is rough. It's a certain occupational hazard if you're a man selling your ass. Calling yourself a woman and shit. Try that with someone from another country that hasn't been brainwashed into worshiping LGBTQ. And if your family doesn't like you and they bury you in some remote place, no one ever sees you again. No one would ever know. A lot of folks who are disconnected, they're living crazy, nasty, degenerate lifestyles that their family don't like. And it's my body, it's your body, your choice. See you in a shallow grave somewhere. It's coming. It's already here. Judgment. Margaret Sanger would be pleased, especially if it's women that get killed of childbearing years. I have a book that I'm going to probably read a few passages from by Margaret Sanger called The Woman and the New Race. It's exactly 100 years old. Let me pull it out, my copy right here. And I'm just thinking, maybe I should go on camera for a second. Yeah, I think I could go on camera for a second and hold it up because people think I'm making this stuff up. I really don't. I could care less to impress people. It's not that serious. But here's a book. Oh, look at my hair. I don't care. I'm not Tariq Nasheed. I'm Randy Short. I mean, he's always picture perfect. I'm not. I'm just me. I don't care. And I don't care at least I have some damn hair at almost 60. But it's called The Woman and the New Race. And Margaret Sanger makes it clear that a whole lot of women, hint, black women, shouldn't be allowed to have children. Margaret Sanger said that black women and black people were human weeds. There should be concentration camps to prevent feeble-minded, and a lot of feeble-minded people seen as, black people, in particular females. Y'all should be sterilized. All over the South, they may have sterilized easily 1 million women. A lot of you like Mahalia Jackson, but you didn't know that Mahalia Jackson was sterilized without her consent. A lot of you don't know Fannie Lou Hamer was sterilized without her consent. A lot of black women all over the South were sterilized. They went in for surgery and they did something else. I have a friend who had their ovaries burnt off or burnt or something. She didn't want it. They pressured her. She wanted to have another child. They sterilized her.
Hey, Dr. Short. I noticed that a lot of people in the chat have picked up on that Margaret Sanger might have been gay. Okay. You guys in the chat, whether she was gay or not, Dr. Short, the more important thing is her ideology.
No, because it goes together in the ideology. And for people that don't want to deal with it, the whole gay agenda is a depopulation thing, whether you like it or not. I could care less about your feelings. It's a depopulation agenda. You do not see them pushing LGBTQ in Europe or Asia. They're only doing it to Africans and Black Americans. And if you're Black, same-sex attracted, and you don't see it, it's because you're satanic. Not that there aren't gay people in other groups, but why are they picking us out to not have children? And the fact that you can't see it is proof to me that the Bible is right and you're wrong. So Satanist Black people, Satan, get thee behind me in Jesus' name. You're going to spend eternity in hell. And the killing of babies and all this stuff is interconnected. And so, yes, I'm going to talk about it. You don't like it, get the hell off this stream. I'm not paid to do this. And the people that bitch the most don't donate. So I don't care. It's facts. And so we start looking at all these people pushing all this abortion, who's doing it. You look at this person that just got put in the Senate for California. She's a lesbian, and she was running the group that's promoting abortion among Black women and women, all women across the country. Is that circumstantial? No. And when did abortion and LGBTQ make it to the national platforms of our political parties? So you know it happened at the same time. If you really get into the radical lesbian feminist agenda, that abortion and eugenics and gayness always are three legs of the same stool. Why that is, ask Satan, but it certainly comes up over and over and over again. And I don't care.
What was the book you sent me? I forgot the name of the book you sent me.
I have so many different.
You shared it with me. You shared it with me through Google.
It doesn't mean I'll remember. I share a lot of books over Google.
It was a small one. It was a manifesto.
Oh, you're talking about the Scum Manifesto, where the lesbian talks about, a man is no good and all this and that. Scum stands for the Society of Cutting Up Men. It's a bunch of lesbians that hate men, that promote male hatred. They don't want the family. I have a book, one of these books, and these women, I mean, part of that thing is killing babies is an act. In fact, baby killing historically was done for satanic gods. Okay, and it's interesting, in those same cultures, it's right there. It's in the Bible. It's in Canaan worship. You had the combination of temple prostitution, both homosexual and for commercial prostitution, and the mass murder of babies, which is where you get the Easter holiday from, that you would run a train on young women, screw them, get them pregnant. If they got pregnant from sex that they were having in the temple, they'd come back and you would kill the baby and dip eggs in the blood of the babies that were murdered. That's the origin of Easter, is baby killing and group sex. Just facts. And so for all these people that are into this airbrushed sexuality bullshit, explain to me, if it's so wonderful and great, why the rates of suicide, why the rates of drug abuse, why the rates of all the social problems, no matter how much this LGBTQ is crammed down people's throats. People are forced to wear the flags and stuff. It's great. It's great. You lick assholes. Oh, you're wonderful, Howard. You guys are still committing suicide and on psychotropic drugs, even when people tell you how great and perfect it is, and that there are no problems when you're same-sex attracted, and yet when it's men and women, that's so problematic. Isn't it interesting? They make it seem as if men and women can't get along, but it's so perfect it's the same sex. Who the hell came up with that idea?
Got the highest rates of domestic violence as we speak.
And the highest rates of domestic violence and murder. There was a case in Philadelphia, where the white gay guy had the black dude visiting him, no forced entry, and he shot him. You know, there's more to that than the story. There's a lot of murder, a lot of abuse. Wait a minute. Where's my book by my gay white boy? I have it right in here. I was just looking at it. Where is it? Here it is. Body Counts. This isn't my book. This is by a young gay white guy who talks about getting raped and being beaten and all this stuff, and the gay lifestyle and having sex in elevators and in dumpsters. Shit, it's not my point of view. Or another one, this one here. It's called Fuck Flu, Bug Chasing, and the Paz Brotherhood. They're people who only want to have sex with people who have HIV. Did you know it's cool to be pos? So people are hip. He's positive. Pos means you have AIDS. That folks want to be around you because you've got AIDS. That's crazy. Bug chasing means people who want to get HIV, AIDS, and other diseases from someone else gay. They see that as a rite of passage, or it's like a coming of age, or it's like getting pregnant. Oh, I got AIDS from this guy, right? That's craziness. You mean to tell me that folks go to the gym and exercise and they eat vegan only to eat doo-doo and have random sex with people that would infect them? You don't think that's crazy? You won't eat pork, but you'll eat a stranger's dick with warts on it? And I hate you because I don't think you should have AIDS? You get out of my damn face. We don't care about your sentimentality. I've watched people die. I've worked in pediatric AIDS and seen children I helped die. I'm sick of the lies. I couldn't give a fuck about the point of view of people pushing this confusion. And these folks with HIV that are drag queens that want to read to the kids and have criminal records for being predators that want to be around kids, and they wouldn't let Brother Q and I come in and read to kids with, that's insane. To hell with that. Nope. For God I live, for God I die. You guys don't stand for anything. That's why you want to try to silence everybody, because you don't have a leg to stand on. If you were really that proud of what you did, nothing that I'd say would make a difference. It's because it's piercing. The truth hurts. And unlike you, my parents work with the damn gay community, and we've seen people die. And we've seen we're the only people that would come to bring them some food or help them. It wasn't the people who they sucked dick with and fucked. It was the church people who would ask them, don't do that. It could cost you your life. The people that they didn't like were the only ones that came to see about them when they were dying in DC General Hospital, where you could smell this shit down the hallway, where their gay lovers wouldn't come. So please get the hell out my face.
You guys, when you read some of the books that Dr. Short is talking about and showed us,
that gay people wrote, not that straight people wrote.
It will make you literally so uncomfortable reading this stuff that I don't even know how people can write it, let alone do the acts. But
to me, it's not even the acts. It's not even the writing. It's to say to me, I can't disagree or think there's perhaps another way to go about things. To have the idea that I don't like Brother Quentin, do I need to like his scrotum to be his friend? Do I need to have his nuts on my chin, or we don't get along? What a sick view of what love is. It's gotta be someone's ass being tore out. You think I don't like Dwan B? You think that I don't get along? I have brothers, friends all over the place. And what I will say to the folks who don't like it, me, the person that you can't stand, is I know what it's like to counsel a whole bunch of gay folk out of killing themselves. I wouldn't say, oh, kill yourself. Yeah, you're a fag, your dick's so good. No, I wouldn't do that to anybody. But I would tell that person, you can do it slow suicide, fast or slow. The slow way is for you to continue to be reckless. And the fast way to be to take a pill or hurt yourself. Seems like you should do neither. If it's really positive, what is good for you adds to you or it multiplies to you. What's bad for you subtracts and divides. I don't see how that. Show me something that Black people have gained from abortion and all this LGBTQ stuff. Show me some health statistics. Show me family retention. Show me some business investment. Show me something that would make it justifiable, because I can see the losses that we take, but I don't see any positives. So let your white lovers or whoever you're talking to blow smoke up your ass. We're not going for it. Okay. And we've watched too many people die. I've seen and know of too many dead people. And there were people I wish I had been as direct and confrontational as I am now. Maybe somebody would have heard, because I didn't say stuff in a mean way. And maybe I should have been a little tougher. I have regrets that I wasn't more aggressive, Brother Quentin, with certain people. I do. I have regrets. So, and I could care less about the people who don't like it. There's some people who are nice people who had some difficulties they were taken advantage of when they were young, and this thing misguided them. And a whole bunch of people out there, they're proud. Maybe somebody popped their booty when they're 7 or 8 or 4 or 5, and they liked it, or they felt like, it's their fault and they stayed with it. We have millions of molested Black people in this country, but the molestation doesn't make it good, right, or sane, or holy before God. If you're the victim of sexual abuse, you should get help and counseling and get out of the game. If AIDS was made in a lab, and I believe it was, what are they going to invent next to kill people? So they're luring all these people, oh, just have that sex. Just take the hormone blockers. Just cut your titties off. Just be free. Oh, this is so good. It's so great. It's right. Right? It's the emperor has no clothes. In this instance, the emperor has no God. The emperor has no morality. The emperor has no soul. The emperor has no couth. The emperor has no elasticity in their sphincter muscle. The emperor has no dignity. That's what the emperor doesn't have. So I'll go back to Margaret Sanger, but I won't be challenging this. I will not. It's not a damn debate. It's called skin abrasive sex to get screwed in your behind. That means for the doctors, abrasions is a wound. It's wounding. It's wounding. And for all the people, you get a rectal prolapse where your small intestine falls out the back of your behind. Certain people think that that's like a climax, to have part of your backside fall out. You got to push it back in. That's sad. And by the way, Black men, you guys are the most vulnerable to this cancer that you get up the behind. And I'm going to just say this. He was a nice kid, Chadwick Boseman. He died of colon cancer. I wonder if they massaged that story. I hope that he was a straight shooter. But I see these Black men die within no more than 4 years. Once they get that rectal anal cancer, like Bishop Eddie Long, from getting tooled up the ass, you're out of here. Your money can't save you. They were just beginning to talk about Black men dying from this cancer up the ass back in the early 20s. And then COVID came along, and then all of a sudden. So you know what? They're pushing RuPaul and Moonlight and all this other stuff. And you know what? There are places like Jackson, Mississippi, and here in DC and Atlanta, where you have Black men dying in droves from a range of things, septic gonorrhea. I always talk about, did you know about that gonorrhea that can kill you in 2 or 3 days?
Yeah.
You've heard about it. See, you know that from the whole prison thing. These people, the white sodomite industrial complex has systematically gotten the American media to not do health education, to tell people the risks that go with being gay. They just tell you how fun the shit is. They don't tell you all the complications or the parasites. There's a parasite where you can swat spit with somebody, and that thing can go in and put a hole in your heart and kill you. That there's all these things out here that people need to know about, or shingles, or meningitis B. They got people taking this vaccine thinking that everybody gets it. No, meningitis B is a gay thing. And hepatitis, a lot of it is a gay thing, and it comes with dealing with shit. There's no way around it. I don't care how you see it. There's lots of things that you can eat that's better than shit. If you need shit, I mean, that's your life. But don't tell me, and don't you dare dictate to me, when anybody knows in the Vietnam War, one of the things the soldiers were most afraid of was for the Vietnamese to get a bamboo stick and put some shit on it. It would go through the boots. There'd be mass contamination. And a lot of Vietnam vets had their legs cut off because shit got inside of them from their enemy. Shit kills. Shit's deadly. Shit's not a snack food. And eating shit isn't an act of love. You only think it is.
Can I get back to Margaret Sanger?
Yeah, I just got to give you a. Dr. Short dropping truth bombs tonight, you guys, like always.
No, and I'm gonna just say
Appreciate you, Dr. Short.
I have gay neighbors on both sides of my row house. Look, the gay women, somebody's been smashing in their cars, probably one of the women that they fell out with. It's no straight man that wants some pussy. This is a broad that probably had pussy that didn't appreciate it. Maybe she didn't clean under her hood, or the Massengill flavor that she had didn't approve, didn't sit right with her stomach. And that broad's come and smashed the windows on their car, right? We haven't seen that much. And they've been in the house smoking weed all the time. These folks aren't happy. And by the way, LGBTQ women, lesbians die of high rate of AIDS than heterosexual women. People that are trannies are almost 50 times more likely to have HIV/AIDS. Almost 95 to 96% of the people that are trans are into prostitution. This isn't good stuff. This is bad stuff. Damn it, you don't have any facts to counter this. So if that's what you like, damn, it's Friday night. You should be out voguing somewhere, getting it onto the dumpster, Don't wait until Pride Month. Get yours now. Enjoy that freedom while it lasts.
Even some of the great comments in the chat, they disturb it. So they make me feel uncomfortable that we even writing this stuff. But you can proceed, Dr. Short.
That's okay. Yeah. No, we go have it out up in here. And so nope.
So Dr. Short, let me ask you, because you gave us the root of the population control and how it all ties in with.
But you want to do a part 2?
Yeah, we're gonna have to definitely do a part 2.
But that's all right. Well, this is great. Yeah, but we're gonna have a holy war. But here's the thing that we want to say about Margaret Sanger, because we can pick this back up, and we could do more, and we can talk about the Guttmacher and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, alongside Margaret Sanger, you had all these other, an infrastructure of people that were for eugenics, that were sterilizing people, classifying people, destroying lives, and Black folks in particular. So Margaret Sanger laid the foundation to get into the Black community by getting no good Black Greek letter organization people, Black Masons, and crooked Black preachers, right? To go in with her thing called the Negro Project, and the whole purpose is to exterminate Black people. And they've done a good job. We've killed 20 million of each other. And let's assume that if 10 million of those were female and they had 2 children, then we're down 40 million or more Black people. So you wonder why they bring all these illegals in? Because we cease to produce even children. We've brought this on ourselves. We did this. Negroes need to repent and get right before God. Yes, I said it. Yeah, you asked me, I'm a Bible believer. And killing babies is wrong. It's an abomination. It's wrong. And Margaret Sanger is a Satanist as far as I'm concerned. And so are you if you're for killing children. And for all of you who feel guilty, good. May God convict you. May you have nightmares until you repent for killing that life up inside of you. If you've got a body count from an abortion clinic that's bigger than the men you've been with, you need to get some counseling, because murder is a murder is a murder. You're either an accessory, and if you did it yourself, then you did it. For every dude in jail that's shot someone, there are several folks outside of jail that have had babies shot with saline or something else sucked out. It's murder. It's evil. It's wrong. It's straight out of hell. It is helping to destroy us as a people. And you've participated. We don't need the Ku Klux Klan when we have Black people with morals that think that all babies should be killed. A Black womb should be the same as a gas chamber for the unborn.
No, Ebony. No. It's not what you think about why Black women are not birthing. Black women are getting more abortions than anybody.
Sure they are. She
Since-
hasn't done her
Since
research.
Roe versus Wade,
She hasn't done her research.
it's
And
been
so
20 to
we don't
30
care
million.
about your opinion. Your opinion means nothing. Opinions don't count. Go ahead and fill in your tax return with your opinion of what your salary is, and watch them come and put a seal on your house or take your ass off to jail. It needs to be the same thing about life and things that matter. It is deviant, it's perverted, it is ungodly, it is wicked to say things go the way I say they should. You're not a magician.
Matter of fact, I
And
got something for her. I got something for her, Dr.
Yeah,
Short.
no. Yeah,
Got something for
no,
her. She'll like.
they need to do their reading.
Where's this chart? Here we go. Look at that chart there.
Mm-hmm.
The top line is Black non-Hispanic out of 1,000 women aged 15 to 44.
And you know what? Something we always hear, there's something that I hear the feminists do. That this is why I have no respect for feminists. Damn all of you. Haven't you heard if breast cancer impacted men would care more? They made out that men are somehow responsible for women getting breast cancer and men aren't doing enough. And yet I know a doctor who's Dr. Lynn Franchi, and I have her book somewhere down here. There's a link between abortion and breast cancer. Who has the highest rates of breast cancer in the country? Black women. Who have the highest rates of abortion? Black women. The percentage of breast cancer in this country is roughly equal to the percentage of the abortions that are being gotten by Black women. It's about 40%. Black women are dying. It kills you. So with all your arrogance and all the shit that you're talking, you end up dying from breast cancer, or folks end up having mental problems. And so it's bad for women. It's evil. And I don't care. Learn how to do some handicrafts and have a stay-at-home business instead of killing the child. Pick the right guy to have intercourse with.
Black women in this country have used abortion as a contraceptive.
Yes, and you know what happens? They've not just used it as a contraceptive; they've used it as a form of revenge. I know of folks where a woman's pregnant, the guy says, "Great, I'm ready to be a father." The woman, I'm gonna kill you. I'll show you. And they killed that baby to get that man. There are a lot of men out here who are victims of their children being murdered. Children being murdered. The woman didn't want it. They're guilty. The excuse is that the men don't want children. You know what? When you hear about children being left in cars that were hot, it's rare. Now and then you hear about a man. It's mostly women. Women make up the majority of the people that kill children in this country. So all this idea of feminism, women are more sensitive or more humane, it's a goddamn lie. It depends on the person. Some women are great women, great mothers, great persons, and others are negligent, vicious. They're just as bad as the men. They just have a feminine dimension in how they do evil. We've got 3 minutes to go. Let's close out. I want to debrief with you, but we need to do a part 2.
We're definitely going to do a part 2. You guys
Absolutely.
in the chat. You guys in the chat, I actually got to be to work in a couple of hours, but it's okay. But I appreciate you guys in the chat for joining us. Dr. Short's Cash App is Dr. Randy Short at Cash App. Remember to like, share, subscribe. That's the best way to support.
And feminism is evil. It's a great social evil. It has to go. We can't coexist with feminism, abortion.
Ebony, you want. I'll give you some statistics. I'll tell you where to go. You can actually go to the Census Bureau. You can go to the Pew Review. This is well-known information. Believe it or not, you may think this is crazy, Ebony. Planned Parenthood will give you the information. It's in their records.
Planned Parenthood has an annual report that you can look up. A good example is if you look at the annual report, they will tell you that, let's say they do 300,000 or 400,000 abortions in a year. What they'll tell you is they gave abortions to 399,000 women, and they did adoption referrals for 1,000. It's like less than 1%. So you mean 100% of women went to Planned Parenthood wanting to kill the child? I mean, it wasn't 2%. At no given time is it a greater number of women in 1 year that wanted to keep the child or may wanted the child to have been adopted. They get their money by selling abortions and giving people cheap, ineffective condoms and weak birth control pills, hoping to sell you an abortion. They do the same thing that a car salesman or any other salesman does. They're hoping to get you to buy. And the product that they're selling you is the death of your child. And you know what? They've got a lot of buyers. Folks who run to that place like they've got some good fried fish.
They have
It's
a very
sad.
good. They have a very good study. It's called the effects of abortion in the Black community. You could Google it. It's about
Please
30
send that
pages.
Yeah, please send that to me. I want to have that.
It's very interesting.
And not only that, so many of the crazy Black women out here, they're post-abortive, that it mentally damages people to kill the baby. It doesn't matter how much swag, how much twerking, how wild people are. There's a spirit inside of them when you kill a child. And I don't care how upset you are. Good, be upset. And you're going to be in more trouble when God gets you in the judgment.
One of the things that I just want to make this clear, right? For any women that watch our show, the problem with when we talk about this issue is our sisters get very offended. What you have to understand is at a certain point in our struggle, allow the men to do the heavy lifting. Stop with the excuses. The statistics and the data is there. Stop letting a brother fucker get between your legs and practice some discipline if you cannot raise a family. I mean, I know it's hard to raise a family. When I had my son, I did not know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, but
However,
you didn't kill him.
No.
You didn't kill him. But these other people, just kill them. Now you see folks making selfies and on TikTok that they're killing babies. That's sick. Let's get off of this. But folks have to grow up. It's evil. And the judgment that people are going to face before God is going to be 100 times worse than what they're hearing on this platform. Murder is wrong. Abortion is murder. You need to repent, get right with God. And feminism is a lie from the pit of hell. I don't care who disagrees. I will always win. And if you're upset, thank God. God is using me to convict the hell out of you. Be miserable, have nightmares. Ask God for forgiveness for killing children. Ask God to forgive you for having a mind that thinking murdering babies is health care. You need deliverance from that demon. Let's go, brother. We've had it now. Yes. Night.